senior crime intelligence officers. She's accused of misusing her powers by pursuing baseless allegations against the officers for ulterior motives. Thabiso Goba takes a look.
In June last year, IDEC arrested crime intelligence head Dumsani Khumalo and several other senior officers from his department on allegations of fraud and corruption. Prosecutors alleged they had unlawfully appointed an unqualified person to a senior position within crime intelligence. But during cross-examination at the Madlanga Commission, head of IDEC Andrea Johnson conceded the charges were baseless.
I relied on the briefing from my team, and it's going to go back to what Council had asked me, that I trusted them implicitly. I now see that the facts as I may have received them then, and I'd have to go back and look at it, were incorrect.
Meanwhile, the newly established IDEC Oversight Office has confirmed it is investigating several complaints lodged against Johnson. Thabiso Goba, Eyewitness News.
Lawyers representing accused number 1, Musa Kekana, in the trial of alleged crime boss Vusumuzi Cat Matlala are expected to cross-examine the state's second witness, Christian Shepherd, when proceedings resumed this morning. Matlala and his 4 co-accused face murder and attempted murder charges in connection with 3 separate attacks between 2022 and 2024. The proceedings are part of a trial within a trial to determine the admissibility of evidence relating to Kekana's arrest. The defense has objected to the search and seizure items, the admissibility of digital evidence obtained by police, and admissions allegedly made by Kekana at the time. Dimakazo Lishoro reports.
It's not yet clear which admissions of physical evidence the defense is seeking to have excluded. Musa Kekana was arrested shortly after the mistaken killing of Aman Swart. At the time, he was traveling in a Mercedes-Benz V-Class with former police officer Michael Puletau and Tia Khomabusela. The firearms found during Kekana's arrest have been linked to 30 other matters, including 3 attempted murder cases linked to the 25 combined charges the accused are currently facing. On Friday, the state led evidence aimed at reinforcing the circumstances surrounding Kekana's arrest. Prosecutors placed emphasis on what Kekana was wearing and whether Shepherd could clearly identify him. Shepherd identified Kekana in court after he was asked to remove the face mask he has been wearing since before the trial began. Shepherd was also questioned about Kekana's demeanor and physical condition at the time of his arrest. The state appears to be laying the groundwork to show that any statements or admissions allegedly made by Kekana during or after his arrest were voluntary and not the result of coercion. Dimakazo Leshoro, Eyewitness News.
A man arrested in connection with the murder of DA Ward Councillor candidate Snovuyo Jogwe is expected to appear in the Cape Town Magistrates Court today. Police say the 37-year-old suspect, believed to be the alleged mastermind for the killing, will face charges of murder and extortion. Quintin Jala reports.
Jogwe was shot and killed on June 20 after a voter registration drive in Dunoon. She was on her way home when she was confronted by 2 armed men. Police say Jogwe had allegedly been threatened after refusing to continue paying protection fees. The suspect was arrested in Parklands on Saturday after allegedly evading police. Police spokesperson Andre Trout says investigators also made key seizures during the operation.
Police seized a vehicle believed to have been used in the commission of the crime, along with 7 cellular telephones that will form part of the investigation.
The DA has welcomed the arrest and urged the National Prosecuting Authority to build a watertight case to ensure a successful prosecution. Quintin Mkyala, Eyewitness News, Cape Town.
It's been a bloody weekend in the Western Cape with at least 11 deaths recorded during several mass shootings. Police responded to gun attacks in Gugulethu, Manenberg and Stellenbosch. The violence follows a triple murder in Khayelitsha on Friday. Lauren Isaacs has more.
Early this morning, 5 people were killed in a shooting in NY50 in Gugulethu. The 4 men and 1 woman aged between 19 and 23 were declared dead on the scene, while another woman was rushed to hospital with gunshot wounds. In Kayamandi in Stellenbosch yesterday, 4 people were killed and 4 others, including 2 police officers, were wounded. At the same time in Manenberg, a 74-year-old woman was shot while 2 men lost their lives. Police are also investigating a triple murder in Site B in Khayelitsha on Friday afternoon, in which 3 men in their 30s were killed. The motives for this weekend's deadly shootings are still under investigation. Lauren Isaacs, Eyewitness News.
Gold is trading at $4,186.18 an ounce. The rand is at 16.69 to the dollar, 22.29 to the pound, 19.04 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $92.16 a barrel.
And in the traffic, we've got delays on the M1 North approaching Grayston Drive. There's also queuing traffic reported on the N12 and the R24 West. This is due to faulty traffic lights right at Edenville Road. Do expect heavy traffic volumes along that route.
A fine day in store for Gauteng. The temperatures will peak at highs between 20 and 23 degrees. The top story in EW and this hour. Andrea Johnson is expected to return to the Madlanga Commission today as the now former head of IDEC following her resignation.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
You're with Clement Manyathela
On 702.
Let's Walk the Talk. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856.
92.7 and 106 FM.
Minutes after 9 o'clock. Dumelang, happy Monday. Welcome to the Clement Manyathela Show. It's great to have you with us here on 702. I hope you're good this morning and I hope you had a wonderful weekend. Are you well and rested after the 702 my Josie walk the talk yesterday? What distance did you do? There was the 5-kilometer route, 8-kilometer route, and the 15-kilometer one. How was it for you? I mean, the route was just so incredible, and I'm embarrassed to say this. I didn't know about Victoria Yards. Did you know about it, Abel? No, Abel didn't know about it too. I've never been to Victoria Yards, and I didn't know about it, and that has to be one of my highlights. When I walked through Victoria Yards, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm definitely coming back here in a couple of weeks' time. I love the setting. I love the environment. I love the artwork in that space. And I'm actually embarrassed that that's quite an interesting part of our city that I didn't even know about. And I'd like to know, what are some of the things that really piqued your interest? What were some of your highlights? The route was just incredible, and it really felt good walking in the heartbeat of Mzansi, a place that carries so much culture and heritage, and it really just felt like we were reclaiming the city, right? Which used to be a melting pot of cultures and languages. And yes, we've noticed the decline of the city over the years, but there are many people who've worked hard to get the city going, including My Josie, the Standard Bank, APSA, and many other stakeholders. So this walk the talk for me was an opportunity for us to show our commitment to this beautiful city of ours and to collectively commit to not giving up on it. So thank you to all of you, 25,000 of you that walked with us yesterday. I hope you were successfully reintroduced to the city of Johannesburg. How was the walk for you? What was your highlight? Let me know on 011-883-0702. You can send your WhatsApps on 072-702-1702. That's how we kick off the 702 open line this morning. Also, the head of IDEC, Andrea Johnson, has resigned with immediate effect. She requested to be allowed to vacate office and not serve the expected 3 months notice. The president has now accepted the request, so she leaves office with immediate effect. And as I said to you last week, she didn't really have a choice. If she didn't resign, the president was going to institute a commission of inquiry into her fitness to hold office. Any rational person who has followed her testimony at the Madlanga Commission will tell you that she wouldn't survive an inquiry into her fitness to hold office. So, as expected, She has decided to jump before she was pushed. But interestingly, she still doesn't take accountability whatsoever. She doesn't. In fact, let me read you some of what she says in her resignation letter to the NDPP and the president. I mean, listen to this. The subject there is request to be released from office. Then it says, this is a difficult request to make given the absolute love and commitment I have held for the position of being the investigative director of IDEC. The recent 5 months or so have been challenging, and the attacks on both my person and official capacity have been unprecedented. Much of the attacks revolve and arise out of the cases IDEC has conducted against officials at Crime Intelligence. I'm currently testifying at the commission, and again, the issue there is the issue above is really what we're discussing there. The attacks in all its forms have brought an extreme amount of negative attention, not just to me, but to IDEC and the NPA. This in itself, let alone the attacks on me, does not sit well with me. I've given 30 years of service to an organization I love dearly. I cannot be the reason that there's so much negative attention and reputational risk to IDEC and the NPA. The allegations against me must still be proven, but that will again require the setting up of a commission and a process which is both costly and time-consuming. The country cannot afford another commission. South Africa is also under Financial Action Task Force scrutiny, and all of this, given that IDEC plays a pivotal role in the output to FATF, is another consequence we cannot afford. The outcome of a commission into my fitness to hold office can go either way, as we have seen with the Chauke matter. The hearing also placed the NPA under scrutiny, cost a substantial amount of money, and he has now returned to work. I have already put in for retirement, as I'm 55 years old, turning 56 next month. NDPP, I'm grateful that you supported this. However, I've since realized, given all the noise out there, that this could be challenged if you and the Honorable President approve my retirement. And I do not want to draw either of your offices into any court challenges. I've been honored to have served and want to ensure that I'm able to exit with as minimal disruption as possible. Your Excellency and NDPP, I'm truly humbly requesting you to consider my application for resignation. While my contract requires a 3-month notice period, I would request both your consideration of an immediate release from office, thereby waiving the notice period. This in effect would mean that by agreement, I vacate my office within 24 hours. I believe that this would serve all the interests set out above. I must add that the NPA has previously released the NDPP of KZN after she was on suspension for almost 18 months the day she was given notice of a hearing. Your Excellency, you have granted me an amazing opportunity to serve. I'm indebted to you, the country, and the NPA. It is precisely because of this that I request your urgent consideration of the proposal of being released on resignation. The NPA and IDEC must and will always come first, and I believe that this resignation, in a manner proposed, would serve the institutions and the country best. Okay, so that's the resignation letter. Let's call it that, that she had sent to the NDPP and the president. I mean, the content of this letter is framed as if she is this honorable individual who wants to exit on honorable terms. I mean, she talks about attacks on her person. She says the allegations against her must still be proven. Was she not the one making concessions at the Madlanga Commission this past week, proving the allegations against her that they abused their power at IDEC? So I'm sorry, I have no sympathy for anyone who, even when they see what they've done wrong and they concede to it, they still don't take accountability. I don't see Andrea Johnson in this letter saying, I've abused my power, I brought the NPA into disrepute. So, are you satisfied with this resignation? Does the resignation mean accountability to you? And what does accountability in this matter look like for you? How should she be held accountable? Because I see there are a lot of you that are saying that her pension money must be withheld. But that can't really happen. And you'll hear when I play you the interview I did with Mamuluku Kubai this morning, who is the Justice Minister. So let me know what your thoughts are on the head of IDEC deciding to leave. And do you think this is accountability for you? Remember, there's still that case the NPA is considering against her for having sent Firoz Khan information about the complainant or a docket against Firoz Khan through that third party. So that matter is still being considered by the NPA. But is this resignation accountability for you? What do you expect? 011-883-0702. At 10 o'clock, we're going to discuss the PIC as the finance minister meets with the board today following weeks of revelations about some of the governance and leadership weaknesses at the PIC. So there's a lot that's been uncovered about what's led to the latest crisis, so to speak. And I know the PIC story can get a little complicated because it involves so many players and transactions. But at the center of it is Lanseria Airport. There's a BEE partner, Acapulco, that the PIC funded to buy a stake at Lanseria Airport many years ago. So Acapulco was supposed to pay back the money in 10 years, but they never did. And there are reasons to that, which we'll get into at 10 o'clock. But when they failed to pay back the loan, the PIC took the shares back. But one of the directors at Acapulco argued that the BEE partner was entitled to a payment from the PIC because the airport is valued differently to what it was valued when the Acapulco company bought the shares. And as a result, the PIC paid this director at Acapulco over 400 million rand. And that was based on a different valuation of Lanseria Airport by a company that was recommended by the director of Acapulco. And as you have seen from reports, that money hasn't even reached Acapulco. So what's going on? Why did the PIC pay this BEE partner over 400 million rand when the same company failed to pay the PIC back in 10 years? And who did they pay the money to if it hasn't reached the account of Acapulco? And which valuation of Lanseria Airport is the right one to rely on? Because there are quite a few. So I want to deal with the story bit by bit. So from today, we're going to bring you a number of conversations about the crisis at the PIC and try and explain what may have gone wrong. And today I want to start off by explaining to you the ownership structure of the PIC, like how the PIC ended up finding Acapulco or funding them to buy a stake in Lanseria, and what happened when they defaulted on the loan. And then tomorrow we'll go into detail about the different valuations of Lanseria Airport and how one of them led to Acapulco being paid over 400 million rand despite defaulting on its loan to the PIC. Look, I think we need to focus on this because the PIC holds, they manage over 3.6 trillion rand in public sector assets. Roughly 88% belong to the Government Employees Pension Fund. So it invests retirement savings for millions of government workers and pensioners. So you and I should care about how the PIC spends its money. So that's a conversation at 10 o'clock. At 10:30, we're going to do the last installment of our series looking at some of the stories that have embarrassed our government and the country. And today, we're focusing on the AI draft policy blunder by the Department of Communications. And then at 11, we wrap up the show with our Family Matters feature. Today, we're discussing financial stress and how it affects the family unit. That's the show coming up over the next 3 hours.
Clement Manyathela, streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856,
92.7
and 106 FM.
Clement, I must commend Standard Bank, out of Standard Bank as well as Jose Majosi, for playing their part in making the CBD a better place again. Standard Bank is one of the big corporates that has stood their ground, and no matter how much the deterioration, they did not consider moving or did not move, unlike other corporates which moved when things went south. So Standard Bank and other businesses as well as Jose Majosi standing firm in order to rebuild the Josie that we know. We're really proud of them.
Hi Clement, hope you are good. Great show. So I went to the walk yesterday, and it was really right. It was really a great route. What I observed more than anything is the buildings. I had never seen, you know, how the streets were so clean and so open. You could actually appreciate the historic buildings in the city of Johannesburg. Oh my word, they are beautiful. The architecture there is amazing. I have never looked at those buildings the way I looked at them yesterday. The streets were clean and clear. I had a great experience of Johannesburg. I realized that I didn't actually know it until yesterday. Walking Commissioner Street, seeing all those buildings. Ah, my goodness, it was great.
Look, that's why I said I hope you were reintroduced to Johannesburg, because that's almost how it felt to me. Walking the streets, I thought I knew the city, but no, clearly I didn't. And please share your thoughts as well. For some of you that use the Gautrain and that use the Metro Rail as well, how was it? Some of my friends who used Metro Rail were pretty impressed by it. And to be honest with you, I didn't want to take it because I didn't know. I mean, I know about the new trains, but I still have the visuals of the old Metro Rail in my mind. So when my friend suggested, no, let's use the Gautrain and via Metro Rail, I thought, Metro Rail, remember what it looks like? And I thought, I'm not sure. But the trains are so slick, guys. I mean, I saw them yesterday, and my friends were particularly impressed. And I want to know what your views are. Did you use Metro Rail? How was it? Because we've always spoken about how broken the system is. But now there are new trains, and I wonder how the experience was for you using those trains. Let me know on 011-883-0702. More of your WhatsApps.
Morning, Prophet Clement Manyathela and 702 listeners. Prophet, when you said you gave Andrea Johnson a month, I thought you were going too far, but your prophecy, as always, has proven to be right. Thank you, my brother. Nice show.
Put some respect on Prophet Clement Manyathela.
Papa Clement, Papa, we must call you Papa. You must open a church. Besides your soccer predictions that you don't quite get, you were spot on. But again, I agree with you. There was no accountability taken there. I mean, you saw Advocate Baloyi at the commission at some point was trying to speak to her conscience to say, you keep making concessions all along, but you stuck to the narrative that Mokwele was unfit and all of that. So she made several concessions after the commission. I'm wondering why she's now playing victim here in this resignation. Zero accountability. I mean, can't they be moved to hold her pension or something like that? Her benefits. Prince in Gauteng.
Yeah, hey. Koketso, you calling us from the East End. You want to talk about Walk the Talk. Good morning.
And I hope you're well. Yeah, yesterday was a really lovely experience. We took the shuttle, my husband and I, we took it from Greenstone, and even the way it was organized, it was very, very well organized. Everything was seamless. And, the walk was like amazing. We did the 15K, and we got to see a lot of the city, But I think the only thing I think that was a bit disappointing was just seeing some of the hijacked buildings and the squalor in which people live in. I really, really think that it's actually good that Walk the Talk took place there, and I would even actually encourage the 702 family to keep on taking it there, because perhaps maybe that's actually what will make these guys clean up the city. I mean, in the city, there's pockets of excellence, right, Clement? Like when you're there by that Anglo-American building, when you're there by that Maharishi Invincibility Institute, when you're there by, the Liberty Building and stuff, by the Standard Bank Building, there's pockets of excellence. But those pockets of excellence can actually be rolled out to the entire city, where block by block, the city is actually cleaned and brought back to order again.
Yeah.
And buildings that are not fit for human, habitation are actually demolished, and condemned. But I think slowly, it will get there. But it's just disappointing that I think for me, Clement, the biggest disappointment was an African government that professes to love African people, can allow people 32 years into democracy to still be living in conditions like that of squalor and hijacked buildings, abandoned buildings that are clearly not safe for human habitation. That I think for me was very disappointing, and it will shine a spotlight because especially with us coming into the local elections, a lot of people I think hadn't been into the city. I myself have been into the city a couple of times, so I could see the state, but I think for a lot of people it opened their eyes. So perhaps maybe, God willing, going into these local government elections, it will make a difference in how they vote.
Yeah, and Koketso, I don't know if you picked up, but there were a number of politicians at the Walk the Talk. I mean, the mayor even said, maybe we should return next year and do Walk the Talk in the city. And I'm sure 702 will confirm whether that will be the case. But Helen Zille was there. I know Herman Mashaba's team was there. I didn't see him particularly. The mayoral candidate for Johannesburg, Nobantu from Bossa, was there. So there were a few. I saw the ANC regional chair who was there. So there were a few of them who were there. So hopefully they've also seen, and that will somehow inform their campaigns and plans should they successfully run for office. Thank you so much, Koketso, in the East Rand for your call. It's 27 after 9.
Your voice,
Your station.
your open line
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela.
on 702.
Good day, Clement. Good day, 702 Landers. Abraham in Florida. Clement, I think Andrea Johnson, we found the value that she won't make it out of the fitness to hold office inquiry. And she just simply decided, this is my cue. Let me pack up my bag of tricks and lies and vacate the office. And with that said, Clement, I wish and I hope that our fellow comrade there by the Minister of the suspended Minister of Police is taking notes on that, Clement, and actually vacates the office before he is subjected to a fitness to hold office. Clement, our minister is still on paid suspension with benefits on that, Clement. How many months has it been? And we haven't looked back into that matter. It's really appalling on that, Clement. What is happening? Key institutions are at risk.
Good morning, 702. Good morning. Good readings, Andrea Johnson. Good ratings. Now Ramaphosa must disband the whole IDEC. And it will be good to put people like General Mukwanazi in charge of IDEC so that our police system can toe the line from top to bottom. He can do it. General Mukwanazi can do it. There is your space, General Mukwanazi. Go and get it. It's yours from God. Thank you.
Go get what? Okay, so I've spoke to the Minister of Justice this morning, Mamoloko Kubai. They're going to have a briefing on Thursday together with the head of the NPA, Andy Motibi, about what's happened, the latest developments around Andrea Johnson. But I did beg her to just come on the show for a couple of minutes to just assure you, because I imagine as a South African, you're looking at this important anti-corruption institution, and when its head has made the concession that she's made, and some of the investigators there have made the concessions they have made, you've got to worry, and now the head is resigning, you've got to worry about the capacity of that institution to continue investigating these high-profile crimes. And, I wonder, are we going to see a review or of some sort on the cases that IDEC has undertaken? Because who knows if the same modus operandi used on these crime intelligence cases was used on other cases too. You just never know. These are some of the questions I've asked the Minister of Justice, Mameloko Kubai. I'll play you that interview after the latest in Eyewitness News headlines. It's 10:30. So good morning.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. Andrea Johnson has arrived at the Madlanga Commission for the continuation of her testimony today. She is now the former head of IDEC following her resignation. Johnson sent a letter to President Cyril Ramaphosa and the National Director of Public Prosecutions, boss Andy Mutibi, requesting to step down. Ramaphosa confirmed this morning that he's accepted her resignation with immediate effect. Lawyers representing accused number one Musa Kekana in the trial of alleged crime boss Vusmuzi Matlaala are expected to cross-examine the state's second witness, Christian Shepherd, when proceedings resume this morning. Matlaala and his four co-accused face murder and attempted murder charges in connection with three separate attacks between 2022 and 2024. The proceedings are part of a trial within a trial to determine the admissibility of evidence relating to Kekana's arrest. And KwaZulu-Natal Transport and Human Settlements MEC Siboniso Duma has raised concern about nighttime winter travel and the significant increase of accident risks due to reduced visibility and severe driver fatigue. This follows an accident on the N2 in Umtuba early this morning. 4 people were killed in the head-on collision involving a bakkie and a minibus. Those are the headlines. This EWN and more at 10 or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Well, traveling in Centurion, we do have a major accident reported right along the N1 North. It's right near the John Forster Drive exit. It's causing about a 20-minute hold-up coming out of the Brockfontein interchange. Please approach with care. If you want to avoid this backlog, please try to use the N14 North. While traveling in Kelvin, we've got roadworks taking place on the N3 North. They are right between Marlborough Drive and the Buccleuch interchange. There's also queuing traffic reported on the Mark 1 North approaching Carr Street. That's due to an accident. Delays from Boyson's Road. And do remember that peak time delays from earlier on are piling up as well. So that's the reason for that long queue on the M1 North. And then if you're heading towards Midrand, do expect delays on the N1 South approaching Olifantsfontein Road. More updates at the top of the hour. Stay tuned.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
As a business owner, while you look for ways to save money, have you looked at saving on your business insurance premium? Switch to Outsurance Business Insurance and you could get a massive 20% discount on your business insurance premium. For convenience stores, restaurants, beauty salons, pharmacies, and all other businesses, make the smart business move and switch to Outsurance Business Insurance today. Visit outsurance.co.za or call 08600 60,000 today. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's and information online.
Because behind every blood donation is a future still unfolding. A child's first day at school, a first job, a dream business, a first drive. For 25 years, blood donors have made these moments possible. In just 30 minutes, give someone another tomorrow. Be the lifeline. Give blood. Give it tomorrow. The South African National Blood Service.
Find your next design obsession at Decorex Joburg. From the 30th of July to the 2nd of August, the Sandton Convention Centre becomes the destination for the latest in decor and design. Explore over 450 exhibitors across 5 levels, inspiring talks and live demos, plus the property show by Private Property. Download the Decorex app and plan your visit today. Decorex Joburg, 30th July to 2nd August. Tickets at decorex.co.za and at the door.
We're giving you millions of reasons to celebrate with our selection of Lucky Millions Lotto draws. You could claim major jackpots when you pick numbers from thousands of daily draws. Choose numbers on UK 49s, Euro Millions, and lots more from just R5 per line. Enjoy more chances and more ways to win, all in one place. Grab your chance to celebrate extraordinary riches when you play Lucky Millions from Hollywood Bets. Bet now.
T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counselling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp HELP to 076 675 0710.
There's so much health information out there, but how do you know what to trust? Catch this show tomorrow from 9 a.m. for Health Matters by CIPLA Africa, where we'll be unpacking important health conversations designed to help you better understand your body and well-being. Health Matters by CIPLA Africa is a trusted hub bringing you expert-led health conversations you can trust. And then head over to Prime Media Plus app or primemediaplus.com, scroll to Prime Media Highlights and watch the latest Health Matters video featuring leading experts and thought-provoking conversations. On WhatsApp, the keyword is health. Send that to 072 702 1702 and we'll send you the link to the content.
Your voice,
Your station.
your open line
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela.
on 702.
24 minutes before 10 o'clock, it's our 702 open line, and I'm getting your reaction to Andrea Johnson's resignation. She has vacated office with immediate effect. She made the request to the NDPP and the president, and this morning the president releasing a statement and confirming that he has accepted Andrea Johnson's request to leave office with immediate effect. And I see some of you are asking about pension. Well, Mamulu Kukubai responded to that question. It was one of the questions I asked her because I'm sure as a South African you want to see accountability. And of course, I wonder if Mukwele is going to, if she decides to sue IDEC, I wonder if she's going to sue IDEC or if there's an opportunity here to sue Andrea Johnson in her personal capacity when she was the head of IDEC. I'll have to check that if it's even possible. But take a listen to the conversation I had with the Minister of Justice, Mamulu Kukubai, this morning. I recorded this conversation before we went live because she had engagement from 9 a.m. And then afterwards, I'll come back to your calls and your WhatsApps. Minister, thank you so much for making time for us. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement, and to your listeners.
So I just want to start with, of course, the developing story this morning, the president having accepted the request by Andrea Johnson to vacate office with immediate effect. Let me first start getting your reaction, because this request was also sent to you before you requested the president.
Look, that's the process. We would have to look at the request, and then we make the recommendation. We first get from the NDPP, which NDPP Mutivi had made a recommendation that we accept. We looked at it as well ourselves as the department, and also believed that indeed, in the best interest of IDEC and PA and the credibility of the prosecution team, we do need to recommend for the acceptance of the request, because there's been quite a lot of public outcry. And as herself has said, that IDEC and the NPA are bigger than her. And as we have said previously, organizations need to sustain beyond individuals. And we should never at any point allow for individuals to be the source of destruction of organizations.
And before this request was made to you, did you at any point recommend to the president that she be suspended, Andrea Johnson?
Look, let's focus on the resignation now and never talk about things that have not been communicated. Conversations between minister and president are protected by law in terms of confidentiality. What comes out in the public is what we have agreed upon. Whether we've had or not conversation about anything else, it doesn't matter. What matters now is that we've got this and we've considered it, and we believe it's in the best interest of both IDEC and NPA.
Yeah, and I was
including HESA, yeah.
Yes, and I was asking that because the South Africans have been trying to figure out, is there a concern coming from, for instance, the Justice Department with what we've heard so far? And if there is a concern, what is the minister doing about it? Those are the questions that were asked last week.
Yeah, no, we've been concerned. You'd remember myself and NDPP issued a statement that we are concerned about the developments. We do not want to run parallel commentary to the Madlanga Commission, but also we do not want to be seen as interfering with individuals. We wanted them to finish their testimonies and therefore be able to articulate clearly what we want to do. So on Thursday, myself and the NDPP, we will address the nation about what are we doing about the current situation at IDEC, so that we rebuild the confidence of South Africans about the institution itself, and also about those who actually have been brought before courts, whether if any of them their issues have been violated. And you'd remember the matters are not only about Advocate Johnson, but also what are we doing with the rest of the team?
Yeah.
And how are we ensuring that concerns that have been raised publicly are being addressed? So we'll do that media briefing on Thursday to outline our plans, what we have done until now, and what are still the issues that we'll be doing.
Yeah, and speaking of the other matters, apart from the crime intelligence matter, is the suggestion here that perhaps IDEC will also sort of review all the other cases that it's undertaken?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. What we have done, just to assure the nation, is that in many of the cases as well, we have even appointed Section 38. These are external people who've come in to assist the organization on a contract basis, particularly for those cases. So majority of the cases that are before courts are run in that particular context. And we do not think that they are actually affected unless if representations are done to the NDPP. Some of them actually have done representations, and the NDPP or previous NDPP has rejected those representations. So meaning that there's been application of oversight over the work, and we don't think that those will collapse.
Okay. Lastly, Minister, some South Africans are trying to figure out what happens now. Does she get a golden handshake? Does she keep her retirement? What are you able to confirm to them?
No, look, when a person resigns, like any of us, any employment, Clement, it's as such, the person has decided to leave, and therefore the person leaves. I have no legal standing to withhold her any payments out of what she has worked for in the country. So there's no legal basis. I mean, labor law still applies to her. If I do anything else, it means I'll be violating the laws of the country.
Yeah.
So she leaves, she has resigned, and therefore we have accepted resignation. Look, in terms of disciplinary process as an organization, the ultimate sanction that you can give in a DC is dismissal. When a person says, I'm leaving, even if you think that you had issues that you wanted the person to face, you can't force them to stay so that you can go through a DC that will have the same outcome. So it's those things that South Africans need to understand. When a person resigns, that's the end. The relationship between the employer and employee has terminated and ceases to exist.
Yeah. Minister, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
That's Minister Mamoloko Kubai, the Minister of Justice.
Your voice,
Your station.
your open line
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela.
on 702.
Right, 17 minutes before 10. Okay, you've heard from the Minister of Justice, Mamoloko Kubai. Any thoughts? As you heard, she says, well, we can't really withhold her pension. This is the end of the relationship between her and government, and anything beyond that would really be violating labor laws. So what would accountability then look like to you? I'm saying that I really hope that Mokwele, as she considers with her lawyers what to do here, if she decides to sue IDEC, I think she must also be specific and maybe look at suing Andrea Johnson in her personal capacity, because she has conceded. I mean, she called her a token appointment when she had not even had sight of her qualifications. So there's got to be accountability. And in this letter that she wrote to the president and the head of the NPA, nowhere does she take accountability for bringing the IDEC as an institution into disrepute. Nowhere. In fact, she talks about attack on herself as if she's been attacked unfairly. And look, I'm not justifying whatever attack she's experienced outside, whether it's harassment. I'm not justifying that. But I'm saying what she has faced at the Madlawa Commission, which really is the basis for her resignation, those were not attacks. It's not attacks. Those were the commission doing its job and probing, and she made concessions to the mistakes that IDEC has made, to the violation of the same NPA Act by IDEC, to the unethical conduct by IDEC. She's the one that conceded to that. But she talks about attacks on herself on this resignation letter. No accountability whatsoever.
Good morning, Clement and the listeners. This is Madizi here. I think on Andrea Johnson, my disappointment was more in her resignation letter. You know, she doesn't take any accountability. And what I can understand is if you're holding public office, when has accountability now come to be known as attacks? I don't get it when they say I'm being attacked from all corners. No, you're being asked to account. So accounting and being attacked, I don't know who is attacking her, but being asked to account, you should expect that if you're in a public office. So disappointing. I just hope she doesn't land another job in a government institution. Thank you.
This is Sampi in Heidelberg. I think we need to applaud General Ndlandla Mkhwanazi for his bravery in coming out. We can really be able to see the level of rot and incompetence within our criminal justice system. The other question I'm asking myself is, do we really need the body like IDEC, where there's your SIUs, the Hawks? Do we really need IDEC? Do we really need IDEC?
Morning, Clemmy and your team. Flores from a beautiful Western Cape. The Madlanga effect. Man, this is devastating. Let me tell you, Andrea Johnson is going to claim with every question now that she don't want to incriminate herself or she don't want to answer. But I don't think she's going to be let off the hook. No. She must come and pay for her transgressions. Have a good job. Bye-bye.
Yeah, hey. In fact, she has now started her testimony at the Madlanga Commission. Let me take you there for just about 2 minutes to get a sense of what's happening there, and I'm going to come back to more of your calls and WhatsApps.
End quote.
I see that.
At the time you signed these summons, what evidence did you have, as by you, of course, I mean collectively the institution IDEC, what evidence did IDEC have to even conclude that there had been manipulation of security vetting processes and unlawful issuing of security clearances in favor of anyone within crime intelligence?
According to me, it would have had to have been the Section 27 referral, and it would have had to have been the supplementary affidavits that had been taken in January of 2025.
And as we established last week, we know that our Section 27 only expresses a suspicion of the commission of this crime without any underlying facts to support such a suspicion. So the answer then must lie in the subsequent supplementaries that were received.
Correct.
My question then is, what must the commission do if it lands at a position where the supplementary statements do not support a claim such as reflected here? That on reading both the Section 27 and the relevant supplementary statement, one cannot reasonably conclude that a crime such as reflected here has even been committed or contemplated.
So if it's not made out in the supplementary, because that is what the supplementary sought to do, then these become problematic.
Yes.
So they're not letting her go. They're not letting her go at the Madlanga Commission. She may have resigned, but she must still account for some of the weird decisions that the institution she was leading, IDEC, have taken. It's 11 minutes now before 10.
Some parcels are more than parcels. They're gifts, opportunities, supplies, and moments people are counting on. That's why CourierIt makes it easy to book, send, and track your parcel online, moving it from your door to anywhere nationwide. And with 2,700 pickup points, sending has never been more convenient. With real-time visibility, reliable delivery, and people who care, we help you deliver what matters. Move it with CourierIt, because your parcel deserves more. Sign up on courierit.co.za.
This past Sunday, tens of thousands showed up to walk with the people, for our Josie in the 702 Josie My Josie Walk the Talk. Thank you for taking the scenic route with us, creating unforgettable memories and showing the world that Joburg is more than just a city. It's a remarkable energy that connects us all. Here's to Joburg, here's to us, and here's to 702 Josie My Josie Walk the Talk. Babi Zebonke, hosted by the city of Johannesburg. More on primemediaplus.com.
Oh, the shelf was leaning sideways, the tap was dripping slow. I said, relax, I've got this, I know just where to go. I went to the crazy store, a screwdriver's all I need. Somehow I left with so much more, a torch, a broom, a book to read.
That's crazy, crazy, that's the crazy store. Went in for one small thing, came out with so much more.
The crazy store. Hey, you never know what you might find.
Your boss noticed. Your ex noticed. The neighbors definitely noticed. Because some cars say, I rented a car. And some cars say, I rented the car. Sani Sixt Rent a Car. Premium rentals. For people who don't settle. Choose the right car. Rent Sani Sixt on sani.co.za.
The Money Show.
Weekday evenings at 6.
Foot and mouth has been a huge issue for cattle, as we know. Does it affect pigs in the same way? Is it as difficult to control foot and mouth for pigs?
We deemed it to be more difficult to transmit to pigs. I think given the viral load that we've seen over the last couple of months, it did unfortunately spread into piggeries as well.
Dr. Marlene Lowe, Chief Executive Officer of the SA Pork.
The Money Show
on 702. Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa Corporate and Investment Banking. Africa's energy future takes more than ambition. It takes turning plans into projects, opportunity into investment, intent into execution. At Absa Corporate and Investment Banking, we help connect the capital, expertise, and opportunity needed to bring sustainable projects to life across Africa. That's how we're invested in Africa's energy future.
Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
8 minutes before 10.
Good morning, Clams. Good morning, Manyathela. Dude, yeah, the walk was awesome. It was fabulous. It was great. It was fulfilling mentally, physically, socially. Yeah, man, the highlights gotta be when I was working with my mate and there were those kids downtown there singing some church vibe songs, and she was leading them while we were walking, and the kids were happy. They were excited. You could see the light in their eyes, and yo, it was a nice day we had. I did 15Ks. Oh, yo, it was crazy. But yeah, worth every second. But hey, we can't be having the same medals, Clement. Nah, guys. 15Ks should have their own special medals. 8Ks, their own special medals. 15Ks, dude, no. So yeah, but it was awesome.
Yeah, you're the brave
Thanks,
ones, eh? 15 kilometers. Yeah, I'll take that recommendation to the bosses. And I mean, it's only fair, right? Let's see what they do next year.
Good morning, Clement, and viewers at home or listeners. I'm a gogo of 69 years. I'll be 70 next month. And I walked, in fact, 15 kilometers. It was so nice. I enjoyed every minute of it, except when we were going back and we were there at N Street. We were about to cross N Street, going back to Ellis Park. There were these traffic officers who were so rude, not traffic, but taxi drivers who were so rude to the traffic officers. I didn't like it. We shouted at them, Bobby Zabonke! They quickly went back to their taxis. That's what I enjoyed it, really.
Morning, Clement. The 702 Walk the Talk was outstanding. It was a great Josie vibe, very well organized by everyone. Well done to all of you. There were some logistical issues at the beginning and the end for the 8K. At some stages, we were all bunched together at the beginning and the end, and we didn't know what was going on, and it was thousands of people stuck. So I didn't understand that, and some of the signage needs to be improved so we know where exactly to go and not have to remove a fence at some stage. Someone did, to make sure that everyone converged, which is pretty dangerous. So that was the neg, but the positive was absolutely amazing. What people in Jozi exist, it's amazing. So thank you to all of you, and it was the best day. Ciao,
Thanks
Celeste.
to you for participating, Celeste. Zandile, you're in Hammanskraal. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement.
Hey, how are you?
Yes, I'm good, thank you, Clement. Zandile from Hammanskraal, and I am a wheelchair user. I also took part in the 702 Boxer Talk yesterday. I don't want to take away all the good plans that was put into the event. However, as a wheelchair user, I was not entirely accommodated. So when it was announced that the entries were opened, I tried to call the race office to make sure that in terms of transport, everything would be accommodated for me. So I took the Hout train from Hatfield to Park Station. When I got to the metro rail, Clement, the building is not accessible. Even the train itself is not accessible.
For wheelchair users.
I had to be. I beg your pardon?
I'm saying, so you're saying for wheelchair users, so it wasn't so accessible.
Correct.
Okay.
So I had to be carried on stairs, and not just few stairs. There were few stairs there. I had to be carried to Ellis Park. So I think that's one thing for me.
Got you.
That didn't really work out.
And thank you so much for that feedback, Zandile, because every time we want this to be a wonderful experience for all participants. So I'm going to take this up with the bosses, and I hope next year when we do it again, we can ensure that there's accessibility even for people like you, Zandile, who may be using wheelchairs. Thank you for calling and for sharing that feedback with us.
Hi, Clement. I remember seeing Ulrich Roux, you know, that advocate. I think they like interviewing him on TV. So somebody asked the same question about the pensions when the police heads were arrested the other time. He asked about their pensions. He said, no, not everybody can just lose a pension like that. You can be found guilty, but you still keep your pension. He said, a pension is something that's very, very, I don't know how to put it. But he said, it doesn't mean that if they found you guilty or you lose your job, you just lose your pension. He said, yeah, that one, it's a very, very contentious issue. So we'll see what happens. It's Veronica from Sprayview.
Hey, Clement, how are you? I'm listening this interview. I don't understand. Let's say maybe the company that I work for, I find out that they are investigating me and maybe I stole 2 million. So as soon as I resign, the relationship is over. They cannot pursue their 2 million. I just want to know if as soon as I resign, everything must stop right there. Nah, guys, we still want more.
It's Winter Carnival at Food Lovers Market. Save big with 16-piece chicken braai packs at only R59.99 per kilo. 3 200-gram white button mushroom punnets for R50. An 18-pack of Food Lovers 2-ply toilet paper for R99.99. And 2 2-liter bottles of Food Lovers canola oil for just R120. Valid until Sunday, 2 August, only at Food Lovers Market.
Corporates That Care promotes and encourages corporate leaders and all citizens to walk the talk for a better Africa. Catch Corporates That Care this Wednesday at 10 to 9, featuring Balgotex. Their CEO, Evan Lockhart Barker, will be in conversation with Bongani Bingwa. Join us every Wednesday as we highlight the efforts of companies and brands dedicated to building our country. Corporates That Care is a Prime Media Cares initiative with 702 and Prime Media Outdoor. 702, let's walk the talk and make a difference together.
The Johannesburg Philharmonic's early spring season features world-class international conductors and soloists performing with our finest musicians. The program includes favorites by Tchaikovsky, Mozart and more. Thursday evenings at the Linda Auditorium from 13 August to 3 September at 7:30 p.m. Tickets available at Quicket.
The world's best male and female paddle players are coming to South Africa. The historic Premier Paddle Pretoria P1 will be at Sunbet Arena Times Square from 26 July to the 2nd of August. Expect world-class action, unbelievable energy, premium hospitality, and an atmosphere unlike anything South African sport has seen before. This is Africa's biggest paddle tournament ever, and tickets are selling fast. Don't miss your chance to witness the sport's biggest stars in South Africa. Get your tickets now at primemediaplus.com.
This is EWN.
Good morning, I'm Sfiso Zulu. Andrea Johnson is continuing with her testimony at the Madlanga Commission this morning as the now former head of IDEC following her resignation. Johnson sent a letter to President Cyril Ramaphosa and the National Director of Public Prosecutions boss, Andy Mutibi, requesting to step down. Ramaphosa confirmed this morning that he's accepted her resignation with immediate effect. Johnson has come under more scrutiny over IDEC's investigation into senior crime intelligence officers. She conceded at the Madlanga Commission last week that her unit doesn't have evidence to prove the fraud and corruption charges it laid against the officers. Justice Minister Mamloko Kupai says Johnson will be entitled to her pension according to the country's labour laws after announcing her resignation. Kupai was speaking on 702's Clement Manyathela Show just a short while ago.
When a person says, I'm leaving, even if you think that you had issues that you wanted the person to face, you can't force them to stay so that you can go through a DC that will have the same outcome. When a person resigns, that's the end between the relationship between the employer and employee has terminated and ceases to exist.
Lawyers representing accused number 1 Musa Kekana in the trial of alleged crime kingpin Vusmuzi Cat Matlala are expected to cross-examine the state's second witness, Christian Shepherd, when proceedings resumed this morning. Matlala and his 4 co-accused face murder and attempted murder charges in connection with 3 separate incidents between 2022 and 2024. The proceedings are part of a trial within a trial to determine the admissibility of evidence relating to Kekana's arrest. The defense has objected to the search and seizure items, the admissibility of digital evidence obtained by police, and admissions allegedly made by Kekana at the time. Demakazo Leshuro has more.
It's not yet clear which admissions of physical evidence the defense is seeking to have excluded. Musa Kekana was arrested shortly after the mistaken killing of Aman Swart. At the time, he was traveling in a Mercedes-Benz V-Class with former police officer Michael Buletau and Tia Khomabusela. The firearms found during Kekana's arrest have been linked to 30 other matters, including 3 attempted murder cases linked to the 25 combined charges the accused are currently facing. On Friday, the state-led evidence aimed at reinforcing the circumstances surrounding Kekana's arrest. Prosecutors placed emphasis on what Kekana was wearing and whether Shepherd could clearly identify him. Shepherd identified Kekana in court after he was asked to remove the face mask he has been wearing since before the trial began. Shepherd was also questioned about Kekana's demeanor and physical condition at the time of his arrest. The state appears to be laying the groundwork to show that any statements or admissions allegedly made by Kekana during or after his arrest were voluntary and not the result of coercion. Dimakato Leshoro, Eyewitness News.
It's been a bloody weekend in the Western Cape with at least 11 deaths recorded during several mass shootings. Police responded to gun attacks in Gugulethu, Manenberg and Stellenbosch. The violence follows a triple murder in Khayelitsha on Friday. Lauren Isaacs has more.
Early this morning, 5 people were killed in a shooting in NY50 in Gugulethu. The 4 men and 1 woman aged between 19 and 23 were declared dead on the scene, while another woman was rushed to hospital with gunshot wounds. In Kayamandi in Stellenbosch yesterday, 4 people were killed and 4 others, including 2 police officers, were wounded. At the same time in Manenberg, a 74-year-old woman was shot while 2 men lost their lives. Police are also investigating a triple murder in Site B in Khayelitsha on Friday afternoon, in which 3 men in their 30s were killed. The motives for this weekend's deadly shootings are still under investigation. Lauren Isaacs, Eyewitness News.
In KwaZulu-Natal, the Transport and Human Settlements MEC Siboniso Duma has raised concern about nighttime winter travel and the significant increase in accident risks due to reduced visibility and severe driver fatigue. This follows an accident on the N2 in Umtuba early this morning. 4 people were killed in the head-on collision involving a bakkie and a minibus. The MEC spokesperson Dabezinhle Sibia.
4 victims, 3 females and a male, perished in a head-on collision which occurred on the N2 Boboza off-ramp in Inkosi Mtuba local municipality. The MEC has sent his deepest condolences to the families of the victims.
Gold is trading at $4,186.18 an ounce. The rand is at 16.71 to the dollar, 22.30 to the pound, 19.05 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $90.42 a barrel.
And in the traffic, we've got an accident in the city of Tshwane. It's right along the N1 North. It happened near John Forster Drive. It's causing delays coming out of the Brakfontein interchange. And then if you are traveling on the N3 North towards the Baklu turnoff, do expect delays, particularly as you come out of Marlborough Drive. That's due to roadworks.
A fine day in store for Gauteng. The temperatures will peak at highs between 20 and 23 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour. Andrea Johnson is continuing it with her testimony at the Madlanga Commission this morning as the now former head of IDEC following her resignation.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
You're with Clement Manyathela
On 702.
Let's walk the talk. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856.
92.7 and 106 FM.
Seven minutes after 10 o'clock, Dumelang. Welcome to the second hour of the Clement Manyathela Show. Thank you so much for staying with us here on 702, and I really appreciate your contribution on the 702 open line this morning. So Andrea Johnson continuing with her testimony at the Madlanga Commission. I suspect that in the next coming days, or maybe even weeks, we're going to see some resignations from some investigators, or there will be some suspensions of some investigators, and maybe that's something that the head of the NPA will touch on when they host a media briefing, I think sometime later this week, to respond to these latest developments. But also, I wonder if there are going to be new arrests, maybe of other crime intelligence officers who may have worked with Andrea Johnson and some of these IDEC investigators to falsely and unethically go after the head of crime intelligence, Mokwele, and other crime intelligence officers. I wonder if there are some crime intelligence officers there who were responsible for planting that seed, and if there will be accountability. But let's wait and see. Remember, at 10:30, we're going to do the last installment of the series that we started a couple of weeks ago, where we were looking at stories that have embarrassed our government and this country by extension. We've looked at the Bushiri escapes. We have focused on Thabo Bester's escape from prison. We looked at illegal mining, Kingpin, Tiger. Remember him? When the police helped him escape from Stilfontein. Oh, you can't make this stuff up. And of course, the AI draft policy blunder by the Department of Communications. And that's what we're going to be focusing on today at 10:30. And then we wrap up the show at 11 o'clock with our Family Matters feature. And today we're discussing how stress affects the family unit. How do you manage financial stress? Like, do you sit down with your children? Do you sit down with your partner to say, okay, things are going to change. kids have to get out of private school, or kids are not going to carry this money anymore to school, or we have to make some changes around how we get groceries, how many times we go out. Because money worries rarely stay confined to a bank balance, right? When a household is under financial pressure, whether from a job loss or debt or maybe retrenchment or simply the rising cost of living, that strain tends to spill into something else. So how parents talk to each other, that can come out. How much patience is left at the end of the day, and how safe a home really feels to a child. So we'll be looking at this on our Family Matters feature at 11 o'clock.
You're with Clement Manyathela.
702.
So I want us to start conversations on the PIC now. The finance minister, this morning is meeting the board, and we'll hear what really happens after he meets the board and who is going to be nominated as the chairperson of the board, because David Masondo has resigned. So who from the economic cluster is likely to be put up there as the chair, or is it going to be the DA, Deputy Minister of Finance? So that's what we wait and see after the ministers meeting this today with the board. But there have been weeks of revelations about some of the governance and leadership weaknesses at the PIC. There's a lot that's been uncovered about what's led to the latest crisis, so to speak. And I know the PIC story can be a little complicated because it involves so many people, but also a number of transactions. But at the center of it is Lanseria Airport. And I'm talking now about the latest developments we've seen around the PIC. There is a BEE partner, Acapulco, that the PIC funded to buy a stake at Lanseria Airport. Acapulco was supposed to pay back the money in 10 years, but they never did. And there are reasons to that, which we'll get into with my guest. And then they failed to pay back the loan, and then the PIC took back their shares. But then we're sitting now with a situation where the PIC has had to pay one of Acapulco's directors over 400 million rand because the shares are valued differently now to how they were valued when Lanseria was purchased. So I've invited Kaya Sithole, who is the director of Koruska Consulting, to come and speak to us this morning about this issue. And I'm going to take this bit by bit, right? I'm going to start with Kaya, take it slow and lay the foundation and explain to you about what Lanseria is, what it has to do with the PIC, how much money funded the purchase of a stake in Lanseria, was that money paid back, and why then does the PIC pay this BE company over 400 million rand? And then afterwards, I want to get into the valuation of Lanseria Airport. So if we have enough time with Kaya Sithole, we'll get into that. If not, that's what we'll deal with tomorrow. Look at the valuation of Lanseria Airport. So if you've got your own questions, inputs, maybe something you've always wanted to know about what's happening at the PIC and Lanseria Airport, give us a call on 011-883-0702. WhatsApp's on 072-7021-702. Kaya Sithole joining us now on the line. Kaya, thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning, and good morning to the listeners.
So I want us to take it a bit slow and lay the foundation for what will be a series of conversations. And because the center here is Lanseria Airport, can you help the listeners understand what the shareholding of Lanseria Airport looks like? And we don't have to get into the details, but who owns Lanseria Airport and who is a BEE partner and from when?
Thank you. So in essence, Lanseria is owned by three parties. For the purpose of this conversation, we'll say three parties. That will be the PIC itself, which had its own direct shareholding of around 37.5%. Then there was a fund, the Pan-African Infrastructure Development Fund, which owned another 37.5%. So that gives you the 75%. The other 25% was then Acapulco's share, which had been funded by the PIC. So 13 years ago, when the transaction was put together, those are the three parties. The 25% shareholder, being Acapulco, required a loan from the PIC to participate in this particular transaction. Mm-hmm. That loan was of around 330 million, and it was due to be paid in 10 years' time. So that's where the original shareholding looked like.
Okay, and this you said was 13 years ago?
Yes, June 2013.
And what was the PIC already a shareholder here, or PIC came in with this other fund and this BEE partner to take over the ownership of Lanseria Airport from the previous owners?
No, so when the deal was being put together, essentially everyone came in as a new player in the deal structure as it was then. So obviously the question of who the Lanseria Airport had belonged to back then was not in play here. It was simply a matter of, at a point in time when they decided that they wanted to put together this consortium, those were the three parties that then decided to participate. Maybe the only historical link is the fact that the PAIDF, which is the Pan-African Infrastructure Development Fund, was a fund that had previously participated in deals alongside the PIC.
Okay. So what happened here, Kaya? Because you're saying that 310 or so million rand moves from the PIC to Acapulco, the BEE partner at Lanseria Airport. The deal was to pay back that loan in 10 years? What happened? Did they pay back the loan? And if not, why? Do we know?
We can work out why they didn't pay the loan. So firstly, the answer is yes, they did struggle to pay the loan, and the loan obviously accumulated interest over the 10-year period. And on the 10th anniversary of the loan, the PIC then had to ask the question of, well, it is due today or this month, can it be paid? And the answer was no. So what would have happened with the loan of this nature is that you then, over the 10-year period, need to service the loan from the cash that you generate from the asset. In other words, the hope was that we buy Lanseria, we operate Lanseria, Lanseria does very well, it declares profits, and then you guys will take your share of the profits and you'll pay the loan. That's how it was meant to work. Now, that didn't work before 2020, and 2020 is obviously quite important. So the Acapulco struggled before 2020, but obviously importantly in 2020 you had COVID, which meant that the entire aviation business, the entire fundamentals of the Lanseria business were completely changed. And in that instant, there would have been a struggle to honor the loan on its terms from 2020 onwards because of COVID. But that doesn't seem to have been the trigger. The loan was in default long before then. So there was a continuous struggle over the years to simply honor the loans of this agreement. And obviously when we get to 2023, which is the 10th anniversary of the loan, which is when the loan is due, then the PIC has to decide what to do with this loan that is now in default.
Okay, so we know now that what this PIC then decided to do when year 10 came is to then take the shares back from Acapulco. But help us understand how these loans are structured from the PIC, Kaya. Is it a matter of, okay, if the PIC gives Acapulco, this BE company, 310 million rand, and they don't pay any of it in the stipulated period, then the BE company doesn't owe the PIC anything? It's a matter of the PIC just taking back the shares? How does it work?
No. So obviously the loan terms of every loan are going to be completely different, so there's no linear answer. But the practice would be, well, over the term of the loan, you can ideally be paying capital and interest on an ongoing basis so that by the time you get to the 10th year, there's nothing left that is due. You could also have a structure that says, well, maybe for the first few years or maybe for the first half of the term, you just need to pay the interest and then pay the capital later on. So every single deal will be structured according to what the meeting of the minds is at that point in time. During the duration of the deal, there may indeed be changes, there may be restructures depending on obviously what develops during that time. So it's an ongoing engagement, but ultimately a loan has to be paid. So there's no point in time at which a loan just ceases to exist. So in this instance, the agreement was that, well, if we do ever need to step in and take over the shares because there's been a default, then we should be able to do so. So that is a process that gets initiated after 2023 when it becomes clear that Acapulco simply will not be able to pay.
Yeah.
So under that particular structure, you then say, okay, fine, we gave you a loan to buy shares in a particular entity. If you are unable to pay the loan, well, give us the shares that we enabled you to buy. So that is the process that you then engage in order to say, well, obviously, as co-participants in the deal, we also think there was merit in this business. So, of course, we shouldn't be averse to the idea of simply saying, well, let's take over those shares. So it's not like someone coming from the outside and saying, I'm dumping these shares on you because, I'm struggling to pay loan someone off. No, this is a deal in which you've also decided that there's an investment case. So you're likely to say, yes, actually, I think the deal is worth doing. So that would have ended up with the PIC moving from 37.5% direct shareholding to 62.5% by taking over the 25%. that belong to Acapulco.
So there are no penalties here whatsoever. So if Clement wants to buy a stake in Prime Media and I want to be a B partner, let's say, to Prime Media House, and I go to the PIC, I ask for a loan, it's over a 5-year period, 5-year lapses, and I still haven't paid back that loan, is it a matter of just the PIC taking the shares back that they finance for me to buy a stake in Prime Media House, or are there penalties here? And I'm asking that question because, I mean, can you imagine how many companies or people would go to the PIC and ask for a loan, please fund me, I want to be a B partner here. And then instead of paying the loan, then they just look the other way, whether there are dividends that have been coming their way or not, because they know that when the stipulated period to pay it back lapses, then it's not like they're going to be held accountable for anything. It's just a matter of the PIC taking back the shares that they lent them.
No. So the simple answer is that it comes down to the quality of your own deal making.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, when you're putting together the deal, there will indeed be questions asked about, well, what happens when adverse events materialize? So you could have adverse events like we saw in the COVID area, in the COVID time, where the structure could be, well, we're simply going to suspend some particular payments because of that unexpected event. So again, it really comes down to how you put together a deal. There's no linear answer. But ultimately, the issue is that the PIC must recover what it lent out. It must recover the capital and it must recover the interest. So at a point in time when somebody says, well, actually, we're no longer able to pay, well, the PIC then has to work out what is the best outcome that's possible. So unfortunately, on the extreme side, you could have a business that goes into complete liquidation where there's absolutely nothing to recover and there's absolutely nothing that anyone can do. That's one extreme. On this particular type of deal, what you will then do is that you'll say, well, because the underlying business is still operational, we'll simply take a share of that particular business. It is at that point in time when then the question gets asked, well, is that enough? Is that good enough to honor the amount that is due? And that's when you then have to do a comparison of what these people owe you versus the value of what you are getting from them, which is obviously the shares in this entity. And it is in that gap, if there is a gap, where the question of, well, what do we do if there is a gap? So again, every single deal will be structured differently. With this one, you would have to then ask them, well, what was the actual outline of the deal in case of these particular adverse events, and then follow whether that was followed in terms of those principles.
Okay, so we're sitting now with a situation where the PIC has paid over 400 million rand to Acapulco, or shall we say to one of the directors of Acapulco, because reports last week suggested that the money didn't really reach Acapulco's accounts. The Business Day was reporting that. So I'm trying to figure out then, if this BEE company that was funded by the PIC defaulted on its loans, why then does the PIC not only taking the loans back, but also they're paying them over 400 million rand? Is it a matter of valuation, and who decides on what valuation we rely on?
Well, what happens is that when the PIC then decides to take steps to obviously take the shares, they call it a perfection of security, which was a term that was obviously famous by the Reserve Bank in exonerating the president in Palapala.
The matter wasn't perfected, yeah.
Yeah. So those steps then require the valuation of the underlying asset. So in this case, the asset would be the 25% shareholding that Acapulco has. But of course, in order for you to understand 5% is worth, you have to understand what the full business is worth. So you then have to hire these valuation experts who are then going to look at the whole business and say, well, if the value of the business is this amount and Acapulco's share is worth 25%, it means that if you as a PIC take that 25%, this is the value that you are getting in exchange for what they owe you. You then have to compare the two numbers, which was the 600 million that they owe you versus the value of the 25% that you're getting, and the difference between the two forms the basis of the cash exchange.
But who decides on the valuation? Because, I mean, as Clement, if I'm a DB partner, I could go get a firm that I know is going to value, for instance, Lanseria Airport at this amount of money, as opposed to at, what other companies may value it at. And I think reading the PwC report that was commissioned by Patrick Dlamini at the PIC, you see the different firms that have valued Lanseria airports, and those are different. So what I'm asking is then, what does the PIC rely on in terms of the valuation of Lanseria Airport?
Well, it's quite simple. Both parties have to agree on the valuator that gets appointed. So there would have been a process of scanning the market and saying, well, who's got the expertise in order to value assets of this nature, and then names would be shortlisted, and then both parties would then say, okay, we'll go with this one. And then that particular valuations firm is obviously meant to be independent, they're meant to be competent, and they must come back with a number. When they table the number, then the parties then still have the option to say, no, we actually do not agree with this number. And that's what happened in the case of BDO. So when BDO came back with the valuation, Acapulco was horrified and they said, absolutely no way, that cannot be the number. So BDO was then fired. And then after BDO was fired, then there is a second valuator that comes on board, and that is Crow, and then Crow is also obviously given the same task. And Crow comes up with numbers that are materially different from BDO. I mean, really materially.
What did BDO put the number at?
So BDO initially said that the 25% shareholding of Acapulco is worth 283 million. So they said, look, the guys that owe you 600 million are about to give you something that's worth 283 million. In other words, you're going to be, 310 million or so worse off as a PIC. Now, obviously, Acapulco says no, that number is too small in relation to what they believe the value of the asset is worth, and that's when BDO then gets terminated.
And then when Crow comes in, then what do they put the number at?
So Crow comes back with two numbers. Yeah. So Crow at one point says, look, the entire business of Lanseria is worth 2.2 billion. So if it's worth 2.2 billion,
is that in today's terms? The 2.2.
Say that again?
So the 2.2 billion, is that in today's terms? So,
yes. So the valuation is done in December 2024, essentially.
Okay.
Right.
But
so
then
they said 2.2 billion in one report, which means that Acapulco's stake is worth 550 million. And remember, at 550 million, the PIC is still worse off because they are owed 600 million. And then Crow then decides to send a second report, and they call this the final valuation report, and they literally just double the numbers. So they say from 2.2 billion, it's now worth 4.2 billion. In other words, Acapulco's 25% stake is now worth 8 billion. And that's a good number for Acapulco because they only owe 600 million. So therefore, if the value of their shares is now worth $1 billion, it means the PIC has to pay them 400 million.
Jeez. But then the 2.2 billion, though, is that justifiable? The first in the draft report by Crow? Because, 13 years ago, wasn't Lanseria valued at about, 1.2 or so billion rand? So how could it be that the shares have not really matured?
No. So the valuation of Lanseria has fluctuated over time, and I suppose the most important reference point I can give you now is that in March 2020, and remember this was just before COVID became a thing, the value of the business was worth 900 million. So 900 million was the value of Lanseria in March 2020. A year later, in the height of COVID, it is now down to 520 million. So you can understand why that happened. In 2024, it's down to 460 million. So clearly, there's been a lot of fluctuations in the value of the business. Now, the important thing is that the PIC itself is required to value the Lanseria business every single year. Why? Well, they own a stake in it. And because they own a stake, they have to know what the value of their investment is at any point in time. So every year end in March, the PIC does have a number. So I'll just give you a short history of what those numbers look like. So in 2022, Lanseria is valued at 500 million. That's what the PIC says. That's what the PIC report. In 2023, it says 464 million, which is largely in line with what we would have expected. In 2024, we're still at 464 million. But then guess what? When BDO comes and then they do this valuation on 30 June, in other words, 3 months from March 2024, in March 2024, Lanseria was valued at 464 million. BDO in June says 1.1 billion for exactly the same asset. A couple of months later, Crow comes back and says 2.2 billion. And then they change that and then they say 4.1 billion. So you had a tenfold increase in the value of this asset from March to November 2024. So everybody can see that there is something seriously wrong with these numbers.
The big jump, though, what Crow comes in a draft report and says 2.2 billion, and then they come later in the final report and say 4 billion. That's a pretty big jump, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And the good thing about Crow is that they absolutely refuse to explain to anyone how they did that. So PwC was denied access to Crow, and that is obviously linked to the question that you asked earlier on, who chooses the evaluators. So because Crow, Acapulco and the PIC had to obviously agree on who was going to value the shares. They both essentially have veto rights. So if Acapulco says to Crow, you cannot talk to anyone about this transaction, then they cannot talk to anyone. So PwC that was asked to look into this. They got nothing out of Crow. They simply look at the emails that were sent, and then they said, well, here's one email that says 2.2 billion. Here's another email that says 4.1 billion. And obviously Acapulco wants to only read the one that says 4.1 billion.
Okay. I've got a quick question here before we wrap up from one of our listeners. Let's play a voice note.
Hi, Clement and the team. I think the challenge that we are confronted with when it comes to these boards is we tend to go for people to fill these board positions instead of going for a set of skills, because you need people from different backgrounds. You need an accountant. You need someone from legal, someone from finance in order to fill these board positions. So that's why these boards fail. David in Parkwood.
Thank you so much, David. And then Gay, on the WhatsApp line, someone else says, hi, Clement. Please, can you ask him what role did Harith General Partners play in the Lanseria deal, if at all? Kaya?
Right. So the first part of the appointment of board members, the problem is the law, because what the law simply says is that in order to put together a board of the PIC, you'll have 3 executive directors and you'll have 10 non-executive directors. But these 10 non-executive directors represent particular constituencies. So the chairperson will represent National Treasury or the Economic Cluster. You'll have 2 pension fund representatives. You'll have a couple of GPF representatives. So that is the limitation, in that the PIC board has to work with whoever those particular constituencies have decided to deploy, right? Now, on the question of Harith General Partners, now obviously Harith and the PIDF do have a commercial relationship, and the nature of that commercial relationship is that Harith General Partners basically works alongside the PIDF in putting together deals and managing some of those investments. So it is a well-known relationship between the two. But on the transaction, it wasn't Harith that came in as the other party. Okay. It was simply the PIDF. So obviously that depends on the commercial arrangements that the guys at Harith decide to put together from time to time.
Yeah. Kaya Sitole, let me thank you. Thank you so much for coming through for part 1 of really the machinations at the PIC in as far as the Lanseria deal is concerned. So as you know, Crow says 4 billion rand is what we're valuing this at. And then over 400 million rand gets paid to Acapulco, except it didn't really go into Acapulco. It went to one of the directors of Acapulco, because Business Day reported last week that the money didn't reach Acapulco's account. So what really happened there? That's going to be what we look at tomorrow. It's 10:32. Sviso, good morning.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. The recently resigned head of IDEC, Andrea Johnson, has defended the unit's probe into security clearance manipulation at Crime Intelligence. Johnson is currently testifying at the Madlanga Commission. She is responding to allegations that IDEC pursued baseless criminal investigations against senior crime intelligence officers for ulterior motives. At least 11 people have been killed during several shootings in the Western Cape. Police responded to gun attacks in Gugulethu, Manenberg and Stellenbosch. The violence follows a triple murder in Khayelitsha on Friday. And British Prime Minister Andy Burnham will host Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky today, using his first meeting for a foreign or with a foreign leader since taking office to underline London's unwavering support for Kyiv. The visit comes ahead of Zelensky's trip to Washington tomorrow as the Ukrainian leader pushes to end the 4-year war with Russia. Zelensky is expected to renew calls to boost defense as both Moscow and Kyiv intensify drone and missile strikes, with US-led negotiations on resolving the conflict stuck while Washington's attention has been diverted to the Iran war. And those are the headlines. This EWN and more at 11 or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
While travelling in Germiston, we've got queuing traffic on the N17 West between Osborne Road and Wits Rifles Road. That's due to roadworks along this route, as well as faulty traffic lights right at Osborne Road. So please approach with care. While travelling on the M2 West in the Amalgam area, we've got delays approaching Main Reef Road. There's also a bit of a hold-up along Malibongwe Drive towards the N1 exit. That's in the Sharon Lee area. And then, of course, in the city of Tshwane, that accident we spoke about earlier along the N1 North right after the Braakfontein interchange has been cleared. Traffic is now flowing in the area. You are more than welcome to use this route and not try to navigate your way around the scene. We'll have more updates at the top of the hour. Stay tuned.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Bongani Bingwa, 702 Breakfast.
Weekday mornings, 6 to 9.
The resignation of IDAC head Advocate Andrea Johnson, the president accepting that resignation. Dr. Ngawreni, this almost doesn't come as a surprise, really.
Well, it's not a surprise. It is good she has done it and the president has accepted. She was going to be suspended anyway. It was just a matter of time, given the revelations at the Matanga Commission. Even though she has resigned, she will continue to testify.
What happens to her now? I mean, does she get a golden handshake and off to the sunset she goes?
There are no golden handshakes in government. There is no such a thing. She'll just get a normal pension like all other public servants. But as far as the sanctions are concerned, with all the complaints against her now, those complaints will be sustained because it doesn't mean that the case goes away merely because she's no longer in that position.
Right.
So there will be consequences.
Bongani Bingwa, 6 to 9.
On 702.
This past Sunday, tens of thousands showed up to walk with the people, for our Josie in the 702 Josie My Josie Walk the Talk. Thank you for taking the scenic route with us, creating unforgettable memories and showing the world that Joburg is more than just a city. It's a remarkable energy that connects us all. Here's to Joburg, here's to us, here's to 702 Josie My Josie Walk the Talk, Babize Bonke, hosted by the city of Johannesburg. More on primemediaplus.com.
This is what progress sounds like. At South African Airways, we've added more aircraft to the runway, increased our flights from just over 1,000 in 2021 to over 24,000 last year. And we continue to add more destinations and routes. It's steady progress over time. We know there's still work to do, but every day we're building something stronger. An airline that shares the resilience of the country it carries. South African Airways. Book your next flight at flysaa.com today.
Because behind every blood donation is a future still unfolding. A child's first day at school, a first job, a dream business, a first drive. For 25 years, blood donors have made these moments possible. In just 30 minutes, give someone another tomorrow. Be the lifeline. Give blood. Give it tomorrow. The South African National Blood Service.
Your boss noticed. Your ex noticed. The neighbors definitely noticed. Because some cars say, I rented a car. And some cars say, I rented the car. Sani Sixt Rent a Car. Premium rentals. For people who don't settle. Choose the right car. Rent Sani Sixt on sani.co.za.
Imagine what 25,000 could do for your business. This week, 702 and Budget Business Insurance are giving business owners the chance to win their share of 100,000 Rand with the Budget Biz Box Bonanza on 702 Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa. Whether you own a beauty salon, retail store, maybe you run your own guest house or any other business, this is for you. Visit primemediaplus.com. Tell us the boldest move you've made in your business. Then get an obligation-free business insurance quote from Budget Insurance. We could be calling you this Friday to fuel your next big move. Budget Insurance is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's apply.
702.
The Clement Manyathela Show.
Let's walk the talk.
22 minutes now before 11 o'clock. So a couple of weeks ago, we started a series on this show, and we were looking at the stories that have embarrassed our government and by our country also, by extension. And we've done that for the last 4 weeks. We've looked at the Bushiri escapes. Can you believe it's been, how many years has it been now, Bushiri escape? Over 10 years. Is it 10? My goodness, this is so unbelievable. It's been so many years since the Bushiri couple escaped, and our government, our law enforcement agencies can never tell you what really happened. All of them together. They can never tell you what happened unless they know and they're hiding it. And then the question is, why would they hide it? So we've looked at the Bushiri escapes. We've looked at Thabo Besta's escape from prison, and his faking of his own death. We looked at the illegal mining kingpin, Tiger's escape in Stilfontein, because the police said, we know there's a kingpin in there, his name is Tiger. But when he came out to the surface, after so many people had died, there are police officers who helped him escape. I mean, it doesn't really go as embarrassing as that, does it? And today, I want us to focus on the AI draft policy blunder by the Department of Communications. Remember, this was the country's first draft artificial intelligence policy, and it became an international embarrassment after it was discovered that it contained unverified, hallucinated references. And the policy had been gazetted and open for public comment until when the news emerged that the document contained fictitious sources that were never verified before making their way into an official government document. So we saw then the Communications and Digital Technologies Minister Solly Malatsi being forced to withdraw the policy. And this is a blunder that is particularly stinging, given that the policy was designed to govern the very technology that appears to have sabotaged it. So joining me on the line now is Jan Vermeulen, who's the editor of My Broadband. And then I'll bring in Professor Rendani Mbuva, who is an AI expert and professor of actuarial science at Wits University. Jan, I'm going to start with you. Thank you for making time for us. Good morning.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so it was journalists that uncovered this blunder that something was wrong with the draft policy. What actually happened?
Yeah, so the media is who first drew attention to this, but there were actually groups in parallel that had come upon this blunder at the same time. One of them is a group called Article 1, and well-known activist Zaki Ahmad posted on Twitter the day the news broke. He posted the letter that they had written to the minister saying, listen, they found these questionable in the AI policy, and they highly recommend that the department does something about this urgently. And so that's essentially the short of what happened. You had groups of people independently looking through the policy, and then specifically had the brainwave to look at the references, because that's where AI has classically made big blunders. Yeah. It hallucinates sources. And so they went and one by one verified the sources in the policy document and found at least 6 which were fictitious. And as a result, the department had egg on its face, and the whole efficacy of the policy was really called into question.
Jan, I'm putting you back to the producers to quickly just sort out that line, because it's not as clear as I would want it to be. But of course, beyond this embarrassment, this was quite a significant story rather than just some simple clerical error. And we'll get into that after this break with Jan Vermeulen. It's 17 minutes now before 11 o'clock.
Hi, this is Michael Owen, Hollywood Bets brand ambassador. Being a champion, I know the best performances come from making the right decisions on and off the pitch. Enjoy the game, enjoy the excitement, but play responsibly. Gambling responsibly is about staying in control so you can enjoy it your way. If you or someone you know needs support, help is always available. Call the South African Responsible Gambling toll-free counselling line on 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710.
Find your next design obsession at Decorex Joburg. From the 30th of July to the 2nd of August, the Sandton Convention Centre becomes the destination for the latest in decor and design. Explore over 450 exhibitors across 5 levels, inspiring talks and live demos, plus the property show by Private Property. Download the Decorex app and plan your visit today. Decorex Joburg, 30th July to 2nd August. Tickets at decorex.co.za and at the door.
To all of you who took part in this year's 702 Josie My Josie Walk the Talk, thank you. This year, the Sunday Times partnered with Walk the Talk, so look out for all the coverage of Walk the Talk on Times Live and in the Sunday Times this Sunday. And remember, all of you who entered Walk the Talk have a 3-month digital subscription to the Sunday Times. Thank you for walking with the people, for the people, on the 702 Josie Majosi Walk the Talk, hosted by the city of Johannesburg. Babize bonke.
You're with Clement Manyathela.
702. Let's walk the talk.
15 minutes before 11 o'clock, one of the stories, no doubt, that have embarrassed our government and our country is that AI draft policy blunder by the Department of Communications. That's what we're discussing this morning with Jan Vermeulen, who's the editor editor of My Broadband. Jan, so we looked at what really transpired here and how journalists discovered that there's something wrong here. But beyond just the embarrassment, why was this a significant story rather than just a simple clerical error?
It speaks to a level of laziness in the department, really, and a lack of due care over what was supposed to be defining for how South Africa was going to approach the age of AI. So, it's one thing to have AI help you in your work, but when you don't even have the exercise the due care to go through the stuff the AI spits back at you and ensure it's accurate before bombing it in, that speaks to a level of carelessness, laziness, and excuses. We were rushed, we were under pressure, whatever the case might be. Lawyers have tried that in courts in South Africa, and the judges have taken a dim view of candidate attorneys or junior attorneys, senior attorneys saying we were under time pressure. That's just not a good enough excuse. And so that's, I think, why this is a larger story than a simple clerical error. It's because it speaks to a larger, deeper-seated problem.
Yeah, and also this is a document that had already been approved by cabinet before being gazetted. So, as you say, this failure was not just a technical issue, but it also compromised the integrity and credibility of this draft policy itself, which then raises a question, Jan, around the quality assurance processes at the department. How has the department explained how it went unnoticed?
Right. So from my off-the-record discussions with people, so I can't identify them, it's just the references that slip through. That speaks to me of a much larger issue. So in other words, they just didn't verify the references or the sources, but they grappled with the content of the policy, they tell me. And so there was pages and pages of feedback on the policy, which was incorporated into the final product. But that explanation to me is almost even more sad, because the policy itself was really not well formulated. And so if they'd come to me and said, we had basically just shoved this thing through AI and put it in front of cabinet, and that's what was accepted, that would have been one thing. But the people inside tell me that there was a lot of back and forth over this policy. And really, at the end of the day, it was just the references that hadn't been properly vetted and which let the whole thing down. And I'm going, that's actually really disturbing to hear, because the policy itself, from my reading of it, was not very well formulated at all.
Yeah. The minister at the time was really speaking tough. What disciplinary action has been announced since this blunder?
Yeah, so the last we heard, 2 officials were suspended. And so their names have been leaked, but I'm not going to name them. And so there's disciplinary action being taken against these 2 officials. And that's the long and the short of it, really, is the people who were responsible for this policy document. These aren't just low-level staffers either. These are higher-ranking officials in the department. They are facing disciplinary action over this mistake. What that turns into at the end of the day, if it's some kind of final warning or some kind of other sanction, remains to be seen.
Yeah. Jan Vermeulen, editor of My Ben, thank you so much for joining us. It's 10 minutes now before 11.
Let's walk the talk
This is Clement Manyathela.
on 702.
All right, I want to bring in now Professor Rendani Mbuva, who is an AI expert and professor of actuarial science at VEDS. Prof, thank you so much for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement, and your listeners, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, this blunder shows that there's an increase in the adoption of and the use of AI, including in policy making. Should we look at this as good or bad? The minister has said, well, we've taken some lessons from it. What are your thoughts?
Look, I think the event in the issue becoming as topical as it did, and perhaps as publicly embarrassing as it did, sort of put this into perspective that it's almost unavoidable that AI will be used for things like this. I think just a week or two after, I think the Department of Home Affairs had a white paper that had similar AI-generated references. So I think it did sort of put in the risk management frameworks of government and many other organizations that employees, team members would deploy AI in such settings, and then therefore we need to work on the guardrails of making sure that what still comes out still has that human touch to it.
Okay. So the one of the explanations that were offered is that this AI was actually used to translate material sourced from Chile, this country, resulting then in inaccurate references, which then shows us that the needs of mandatory human verification in policy adoption and drafting becomes important, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I think and that's the thing. This is a task that traditionally, were meant for, let's call them policymakers or technocrats within the government, right? And I think we should not lose that. I mean, there could be times where research needs to be sort of synthesized, but again, that verification, sense checking, and making sure, because I mean, if we're getting references wrong, references are then used to make substantiate claims that are made in the document. That if this happens, the other thing would follow. So if our references are wrong, it means some of the claims that we're making in terms as evidence of the policy or decisions we're making, and then have very weak footing for us to be presenting.
Yeah. Are you convinced, though, that a revised policy will undergo far more rigorous scrutiny before it's brought back for public consultation?
Yeah, I think so. And mainly because I have high amount of confidence in my colleagues. Some of them are here at WITS, Professor Rosman, Professor Marivate from Pretoria. These are, I think, the country's leading, or if not the continent's leading AI experts. So they would be well informed about the limitations that would using LLMs or even AI in this particular context would have, and also would have sufficient technical context in terms of where the overall strategy and policy for the country in AI would be. So I think they, if at all, using the AI, it will be more of a support to what is really strong technical competence of the new panel that's working on this.
Is this a significant setback, though? Would you say, this was a significant setback for the country's digital ambitions? Because, of course, this blunder has resulted now in delayed policy that's intended to prepare our country for the AI economy.
It is a setback. I don't think there's any way around that. But I think it has highlighted a phenomena that I think was inevitable in the AI age, in the sense that I think there's major skills gap that we need to close. And there's caution that we need to exercise in different areas, because these technologies are readily available. There's no sort of rationing or sort of curtailment. I mean, you go to some organizations, ChatGPT's IP is banned, mainly because they still want to maintain the integrity of the work in those places. But I think it is a setback, but I think it's one that we'll learn from. And in many ways, I mean, we already know that we won't have, the errors that we had in the previous one and what's forthcoming. What is to emerge out of this is probably something that's a lot more evolved than what we would have had previously.
Mm-hmm. And what happens next? I think an expert review panel has been appointed, and we've been promised a far more rigorous process before a revised policy is published. What lessons, Prof, do you think or even believe this blunder offers that will not be repeated? What are the lessons for all of us?
I think for all of us, and I think it also follows from the different, usually in the corporate setting, someone would say there are multiple lines of defense, right? You had that the policy itself was reviewed by senior individuals within the department. It went to cabinet and so on, and that was still signed off. So I think it sort of raises the red pen in different lines of defense in reviewing pieces of text, that to say, well, do we check? Because the references and what you sort of lean on in making your argument in any document is very important. So I think those are things that we people should actually check and test out, and that should be part of almost day-to-day integrity management of different pieces of text or important documents that are going up the review chain. So I'm hoping that increases, and it's a lesson that's not only applicable there. Here at the university, we have the same. We have hundreds, if not thousands, of our students writing dissertations and theses, and we still need to make sure that the integrity of the academic project, like in any other project, is still in place in the era of AI, and by that is to just make sure that we curtail events like this where we know some of these limitations, and we also do some verifications. I mean, it was interesting. I was doing a defense for a master's at Ames in Stellenbosch. And what we did was, one of the students, we asked them, there's reference number 5 in your paper, it's this and that paper, what does it say? And I think it was quite good to see that, the student had engaged the material and could actually tell you what the reference is. And I think that's quite important, because there's, with tons of text that are available online, it's important for one to make sure that things are still people still engage the material with sufficient depth.
Absolutely. Yeah, Prof, thank you so much for speaking to us. So many lessons to take from this. Professor Rendani Mbuva, an AI expert and professor of actuarial science at Wits University.
Big advances in health are happening right here in South Africa. Local researchers are studying a new TB vaccine called M72 that could help stop people from getting seriously ill. And programs like Cochimpilo are helping men living with HIV overcome stigma, start treatment, and stay on it through peer support and private chat guidance. It's South Africans helping shape the future of global health, supported by the Gates Foundation for 25 years. Partners of human potential.
In life's most challenging moments of loss, compassion can be your greatest comfort. You shouldn't have to face the financial burden of losing a loved one by yourself. Rest assured, Clientele's funeral plans pay out cash within 24 hours. You can cover up to 13 family members on one plan, ensuring all your loved ones are taken care of, and 3 children are covered at no additional cost. With Clientele, you're not just buying a plan, you're also buying peace of mind. When the time comes, you will need to make important calls with your 200 Rand airtime you will receive when you claim. Plans offer double accidental death cover, as well as transport, grocery, and unveiling benefits. Apply today. It's easy. There are no medical examinations and no paperwork. SMS funeral to 31586. That's 31586. Clientele Life is an authorized FSP and licensed life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
In the 1960s, Douglas Engelbart had a thought. What if you could jump from one idea to another with just a click? That question led him to pioneer how hypertext would work. And this laid the foundation of how we navigate the internet today. See, whether you're reinventing the future or building something new, you need the right foundations to start. At Exnilo, we give you the right foundation to host your big idea. Exnilo, trusted in hosting.
Clement is on X.
At The Real Clement M.
All right, we're getting ready for the news at 11 o'clock, after which we are going to start our Family Matters feature. And I'm really looking forward to the conversation this morning. I want to know how you deal with financial stress in your family. How do you manage it? And how do you discuss then the challenges with your partner or the children? Because money worries rarely stay confined to a bank balance. When you have a household and it's under financial pressure, whether from a job loss or debt, retrenchment, you name it, that strain tends to spill into something else. So how do you then, as parents, as guardians, navigate that in the family unit? That's the conversation we're going to have after the news at 11 o'clock on the mark.
This is EWN.
Good morning, I'm Sfiso Zulu. The recently resigned head of Investigating Directorate Against Corruption, Andrea Johnson, has defended the unit's probe into security clearance manipulation at the Crime Intelligence. Johnson is currently testifying at the Madlanga Commission for her fourth day. She is responding to allegations that IDEC pursued baseless criminal investigations against senior crime intelligence officers for ulterior motives. Thabiso Koba reports.
Last year, IDEC authorized an investigation into alleged manipulation of security vetting processes and the subsequent unlawful issuing of security clearances at SAP's Crime Intelligence. In February last year, as head of IDEC, Andrea Johnson signed off on a summons order requesting the security clearances and vetting files of 7 senior crime intelligence officers. Johnson was asked what was the basis of her issuing summons.
I had no reason to doubt the briefing that was given to me by the investigator. I didn't ask for a document. I was satisfied with the briefing that I was given. That as an investigation team, they identified that this is the investigation that is outstanding. This is what they require for the investigation, and this is what it is that must be subpoenaed.
The Commission's evidence leader, Mahlape Silo, says there are still outstanding documents from IDEC, which makes it difficult to determine whether there was sufficient legal basis for Johnson's summons. Thabiso Koba, Eyewitness News.
At least 11 people have been killed during several shootings in the Western Cape. Police responded to gun attacks in Gugulethu, Manenberg and Stellenbosch over the weekend. The violence follows a triple murder in Khayelitsha on Friday. Lauren Isaacs has more.
Early this morning, 5 people were killed in a shooting in NY50 in Gugulethu. The 4 men and 1 woman aged between 19 and 23 were declared dead on the scene, while another woman was rushed to hospital with gunshot wounds. In Kayamandi in Stellenbosch yesterday, 4 people were killed and 4 others, including 2 police officers, were wounded. At the same time in Manenberg, a 74-year-old woman was shot while 2 men lost their lives. Police are also investigating a triple murder in Site B in Khayelitsha on Friday afternoon, in which 3 men in their 30s were killed. The motives for this weekend's deadly shootings are still under investigation. Lauren Isaacs, Eyewitness News.
KwaZulu-Natal Transport and Human Settlements MEC Sponiso Duma has raised concern about the nighttime winter travel and the significant increase in accident risks due to reduced visibility and severe driver fatigue. This follows an accident on the N2 in Umtuba early this morning. 4 people were killed in the head-on collision involving a bakkie and a minibus. The MEC spokesperson, Dabezinhle Sibia.
4 victims, 3 females and a male, perished in a head-on collision which occurred on the N2 Boboza off-ramp in Inkosi Mtuba local municipality. The MEC has sent his deepest condolences to the families of the victims.
And British Prime Minister Andy Burnham will host Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky today, using his first meeting with a foreign leader since taking office to underline London's unwavering support for Kiev. The visit comes ahead of Zelensky's trip to Washington tomorrow as the Ukrainian leader pushes to end the 4-year war with Russia. Zelensky is expected to renew calls to boost defense as both Moscow and Kiev intensify drone and missile strikes, with US-led negotiations on resolving the conflict stuck while Washington's attention has been diverted to the Iran war. Russian and Ukrainian strikes killed at least 10 people yesterday, with Kyiv saying Moscow attacked a supermarket in northern Ukraine and Russia accusing Kyiv of striking a bus stop in the occupied east. The strikes come a day after 20 people were killed on both sides of the front line, with both Kyiv and Moscow intensifying attacks, while diplomacy to end the war launched by Russia in 2022 is at a deadlock. Zelensky told Sky News he's hopeful ahead of his meeting with the new British Prime Minister.
I had good visits, Starmer's visit to Ukraine, and we spoke about it. And he said that the new government will continue, if we speak about Ukraine, so will continue the policy of supporting of Ukraine during this war.
Gold is trading at $4,186.18 an ounce. The rand is at 16.71 to the dollar, 22.30 to the pound, 19.05 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $90.42 a barrel.
And in the traffic, we've got delays in Germiston. This is along the N17 West between Osborne Road and Wits Rifles Road. That's due to faulty traffic lights there. Well, on the same route in the opposite direction, though, heading towards Carnival City, we've got roadworks that are taking place, causing delays just as you approach the R21 turn off. And then there's also queuing traffic. This is along Dobsonville Road, approaching Urban East Drive. Please be on the lookout there.
A fine day in store for Gauteng. The temperatures will peak at highs between 20 and 23 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour. The recently resigned head of IDEC, Andrea Johnson, has defended the unit's investigation into security clearance manipulation at Crime Intelligence.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
You're with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
Let's walk the talk. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856.
92.7 and 106 FM.
Seven minutes after 11 o'clock. Sanbonani, good morning. Dumelang. Welcome to the third and final hour of the Clement Manyathela Show. It's time now for our Family Matters feature.
702.
Family Matters.
So on our Family Matters feature this morning, I want us to talk about financial stress and how it affects the family unit. How do you manage financial stress? So when you have a situation in your household where maybe you've lost a job, or your partner or spouse has lost a job, or maybe you are drowning in debt, maybe you're dealing with retrenchments, or just simply the rising cost of living. I mean, the strain tends to spill into something else, right? How parents talk to each other, how much patience is left at the end of the day, and how safe a family home feels to a child. And parents often try to shield their children from money troubles. Is that what you do as a parent? So even when you know that you can't afford certain things, you're just going to force it because you don't want the child to be made uncomfortable, or for the child to do or not do certain things they're used to, because you're worried about how that's going to make them feel. So you try and protect them as much as you can. Are you that kind of a parent? I'd like to hear from you this morning. But children are far more perceptive than adults give them credit for. I mean, they can pick up on tension. The overheard arguments is another. And even your mood, when it changes as a parent, they can pick it up. So even when nothing is explicitly said, that can become clear to them. So I want us to talk about financial stress and how it affects us as a family unit, because it also has a way of reshaping daily life, not just the mood in the house. A family that has a downsize, or they move to a smaller home, or you're changing schools for your children, or you're even cancelling extracurricular activities, you're cutting back on outings, huh? Or you're moving in with relatives. Those are some of the options that are available for families out there. You have to go back home with your children. How do you explain that to them? How do you get them to understand what dynamics the family is dealing with? Or are you completely leaving them out? Even your own spouse or partner, you try and resolve things on your own. But the children do experience those changes as real losses too, even if they don't have words for it. So my question to you this morning is your family currently under financial pressure, or has your lifestyle changed because of it? And how has money stress affected your household, and what has helped you manage it? 011 883 0702 is the number to dial. WhatsApp's on 072 702 1702. Joining us now to guide us through this conversation on our Family Matters feature is Dr. Kitumetse Mashego, who's a clinical psychologist. Dr. Mashego, thank you for guiding us through this important conversation. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement. Good morning to the listeners. Thank you for having me.
So, first of all, I mean, we don't really normalize conversations about finances in the household, do we? In your observation, as a clinical psychologist, like what's been your experience? Do you find that, when there are changes, whether upside or downside in finances, that often becomes the conversation in the household?
We rarely, I think it's almost like a taboo for some families to talk about finances. I don't know why it's like that. And yet finances are so black and white. If I lose my 10 rands and my school fees is 8 rands, it means something must happen for me to, get back on it. I must do something. There will be a lack. So we function from a place of not being able to have these difficult conversations, which can cause a lot of problems. And I think as human beings, as society, we don't see that loss and failure are a part of life. We often just look at success and we feel like failures. We define our character, our self-worth around our successes. And we don't understand that sometimes things don't go well. Sometimes you will fail at something, but it's not the end. And I think that's where then when people lose their jobs or the finances are no longer the same, that they struggle with their identity. And also how we treat people who have, material things or their finances are in order also can, feed into this because we hold them in higher regard sometimes, sadly. So when they lose that position, they really feel lost and they don't know how to come back up sometimes.
Sure. So let's talk about then how that financial stress affects a family beyond just the bank balance. What are some of the dynamics that financial stress changes for the family unit?
Sometimes, the main breadwinner is no longer the breadwinner, or maybe in a two-income household, then that also can change, meaning the power dynamics. And as I've mentioned, some people see money or the ability to feed their family as the head of the household, usually which falls onto, males in most instances, when they lose their jobs or they're unable to supply or rather afford certain things. Therefore, they might, develop poor coping strategies because of this. They might feel like they are no longer the man, of their household, and tend to then obviously then be impacted negatively, which can lead to things such as substance abuse. And remember, substance is not just alcohol. It can be your over-the-counter medication. It can be food sometimes can be used, to numb feelings sometimes, or some of the other things that people use in order to numb. So there can be a lot of emotions that can really erupt in a family where there's anxiety, there's depression, the conflicts can increase, and people can really struggle to find themselves again or to readjust to the new reality of their state of finances.
Yeah. And do you think children pick it up though? Do they pick up on financial stress even when the parents try to hide it?
Definitely. Definitely children will. And, we always emphasize to parents that what raises children is unconditional love. Sometimes we think the physical things, the material things are what matter because of where we come from, right? If you came from a place where you didn't have much and now you want to give your children everything, the minute you're unable to give them that, then you feel like a failure as a parent. But what raises children, yes, they might want certain things, material things, but what raises children is unconditional love. Because you do get families where they have everything, the finances are in order, they have everything everybody dreams about in terms of materials, and yet because they didn't have that unconditional love, they are the most unhappiest children. But definitely children who find themselves in homes where finances are no longer the same and there's a lot of emotional strain because of it, and even though it's not spoken about, they can also take a knock. And you do find those children sometimes who feel bad when they realize how much, for example, that their fees cost. And now they realize that how can my parents afford this when mom or dad has lost their job? So they start to feel bad and actually start performing poorly at the school or want to change school because of that. So they take on the burden, of putting pressure
Yeah.
by maybe their school fees or the things that they demand from their parents usually.
So how do you then speak to children about money issues? Because you don't want to frighten them. So I recently saw a case of a man who was saying that he has been unemployed for about 3 months now, and the wife and the children at home don't even know that. And he wakes up every single morning, he takes a shower, he goes to work, quote unquote, but it's not really work because he's just not ready to even have that conversation with his wife and even the children. So how, and we'll chat about partners in a moment. How do you manage that with your spouse? But children, how can parents talk to children about money worries without frightening them?
I think it's not always easy, as I said. I mean, for the example that you're giving, you wonder what's going on within the gentleman where he's unable to even just verbalize it out loud. So you wonder if there's a lot of denial maybe to the reality, or it was a shock, or, he saw it coming, but was just stuck and couldn't think outside of the box, seek help to find advice of how to handle the income loss that will happen. So I think it's quite important to just be aware that money doesn't define us, right? We are not how much we earn, which is not always easy because life demands money. So yes, so I think we really need to sit our children down and let's start looking at the budget to say this is how much is coming in, and we're doing our best to make sure that more comes in. But for now, this is our reality, because what it does also, it helps children understand that we need to function with a budget and that sometimes life happens. And then as a family, how are we going to cope with this loss of income and adjust and adapt and still support and love each other in spite of it, but also emphasizing to them that it is not their fault, because children tend to internalize sometimes when things go wrong that it's because of us that dad lost his job or mom lost his job. So just to make sure that emotionally the children understand what is happening, that it's not their fault, and that the family as a unit is working together to find coping strategies to move on in spite of this, and it doesn't define them, and to help them see that this is a phase, a passing phase that they will work through together as a family.
011-883-0702. Please let me know how you've managed financial stress in your own family. Did you sit the children down? And look, there have been some extreme cases where, one parent loses income or they lose a job, or maybe you were a single parent and now you've had to make some changes because, especially during COVID, a lot of salaries were slashed, or maybe you lost a job, you lost a contract. Did you take your children out of maybe, let's say, private school, or maybe you started getting your children to use public transport because you can't pay transport anymore? How does it work? How have you navigated that in your own family? Give us a call on 011-883-0702. You can send your WhatsApps as well on 072-702-1702. On the WhatsApp line, Dr. Mashiro, I've got a message here from, what's this? Bongi, who says, Clement, I've lost my job twice. Once I was fired. The other time I was just managed out. The first time was hard as my financial position had become part of my identity socially and in other ways. Fortunately for my child's mom, literally just carried the weight and waited for me to get back on my feet. She'd even given me money to take our child out. Wow. Second time around, I had used it as a career pause. I fortunately had support both times, and I think we need to talk more about this. Oh, Bongi, that's an important point you're raising. And Dr. Mashiro, which brings me then to, because Bongi talks about the importance of support during this difficult time. And I mean, who better to give you support than your immediate partner, right? Or your spouse. So how do you navigate it then with your partner? Because as I say, this gentleman I'm talking about who says, I've been unemployed for 3 months now, but even my own wife doesn't know because I'm scared to even have that conversation. And maybe he fears that she's going to leave, or maybe he fears that, that's going to change their dynamic. So what's your advice for someone listening to us who probably is going through the same thing and doesn't even know how to broach that conversation?
I would recommend that, understanding that putting it off will not make it go away. Something you are repressing, suppressing, ignoring doesn't make it less stressful, right? You're just pushing it or postponing the pain that you are expecting, or whatever it is, the reaction, the consequences. So the sooner the better, so that you can plan, because with finances, as I said, it's rands and cents. At the end of the month, you need to pay this much for rent, for school fees, etc., etc. So if there's a shortfall, there will be a problem, there will be a crisis. So it's better to plan for that potential shortfall, so that you don't get into trouble in terms of your credit, but also in terms of the family unit, so that they are expecting this and you're sort of planning around it. And I think that's the important part, because if he has been unemployed for 3 months, I wonder, does that mean he's taking away from his savings? Is it getting credit, loans? Because then if you're not being honest about the situation, then you find yourself in difficult positions where you are borrowing money, or you're getting into financial risk, just to keep up appearances. But I think one of the messages also said that the identity was wrapped around their income and the lifestyle they could provide from that. And I think that's an important conversation to have, because sometimes we grow up with lack, and once you get that, becomes your identity. And I think there's more to us than how much you earn and your income. Therefore, you must also do the work to make sure you're not functioning from a place of lack, a place of pain, that you just wanted to get this thing when you were young. Therefore, you are going to get it no matter, even if you don't need it. And you're going to give your kids, even if they don't need it, just because you did not have it. So we need to understand that money can also be a projection of what's going on internally, right? Your relationship with money. We need to look at what's going on, that makes you spend or be fearful of not having any at the end of the day.
Yeah, and in some cases, maybe it's someone who has lost a partner, whether through divorce or a partner or a spouse is deceased, and they have to figure out, okay, how do we rationalize resources here? It can really get tricky. Another message here on the WhatsApp line from Raylene says, "Hi Clement, good morning. Thank you for this chat. We are a family of 4. My youngest son is in grade 9. My husband, oldest son, and I are unemployed. We have applied. Unfortunately, we don't even get a 'we regret to inform you' response. Fortunately, though, we have open conversations with our boys, and we make decisions together when we have some funds to buy food. This moment in time has really brought our family closer, and we adapt and have really become resilient. We take control of stuff that's in our control, and I know my boys can adapt and adjust in any situation, so we stay blessed, and it's about gratitude." That's a message there from Raylene. Thank you so much, Raylene, for sending that. And speaking of adapting, Dr. Mashiro, some kids really won't take that lying down and take kindly to it when you tell them, okay, you're moving from a private school, or okay, you're no longer going to have a driver take you to school or be picked up, you're going to use the bus, or you're going to use the train, or we're not longer giving you 50 Rand a day as carry on, you're taking now 20 Rand, 5 Rand, whatever the case is. So how do you manage then the tensions that come as a result of the changes that are being proposed by the parents who are facing financial stress? Because also, I guess the challenge also becomes when parents themselves don't have these open conversations with the kids. So all the kids see is you stopping the allowance or telling them to use public transport now. They're not going to be fetched, but they don't really know what's going on. And that causes tension in the family.
Definitely, the reaction of the child is often a reflection of how the parent was parenting when it comes to money, right? So, meaning that they have these conversations, that they make the child feel extra special because they're going to private school vis-a-vis someone who goes to public school. What was the conversations they had around, the material things or the tangible things that they were offering for their child? And I think it then goes back also to the parent themselves to say, okay, it means I need to make sure that I also equip my child to deal with failure, disappointment, because that can happen. Your child can have a great job and then they lose the job, and it can really determine how they go about their life going forward, right? So we need to equip children with the skills to deal with failure and loss so that they are able to navigate life, because nothing is ever guaranteed. There's no way where it said that, you will work the job you do until you retire and, everything will be fine. And I think that's what we need to look at when it comes to life, and not to necessarily function from a place of fear, but, be adaptable to understand that, everything is 50-50. Sometimes things go well, sometimes they do not. And what do we do when they do not go well? Right? Let's not have this worst case scenario where we think, doom and gloom all the time. But what happens when things don't go well? Do we have savings? Do we have the language to, speak about these things? Are we talking openly about it? Do we give, awareness to our children that we're not that wealthy? Actually, mom and dad are working very hard to afford this lifestyle, and we're working on a budget. Are we teaching the children financial skills? Because I think that also falls on the wayside somewhere, that we don't teach children how to budget. We just give them what they want, maybe because we feel they deserve it or we didn't have it. But we need to also teach them how to manage money from a very young age and to see the value of money. But you also need to live that life as well. So that's why when you parent, you need to make sure that you are also okay in terms of your relationship with money.
Yeah, got it. Let's go to some WhatsApps now on 072 702 1702.
Hello, Clement. My granddaddy used to have a saying, without money, love goes out the back door. And I must tell you that it is a huge foundation for most relationships. I, in particular, experienced it. I closed a business in the late 80s, early 90s. We had quite a successful time. And when I closed it and we realized some financial pressure, and that was early on in the first month, my ex-wife, bless her soul, turned to me and said, "You've ruined us financially, and I'd be better off divorced." So I say to you listeners, be brave. If you experience this, face it head on. The word is courage, from the French word of the heart. Speak your truth. Cannot run away from what it is. You lose your income, you lose your job, whatever it is. Face each other, say what needs to be said, and you'll know exactly where you stand with your spouse.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. Dr. Mashaho, that really hit me hard. Without money, love goes out the back door. Is that how central money is to many relationships and marriages?
Sadly so, Clement. And I think people, when they say their vows for better or worse, they don't comprehend what worse means. Worse doesn't mean really that your partner is treating you abusively. Worse means instances where financially there's a problem. Someone gets physically ill, and suddenly love is not enough. And I think that's where we need to constantly, even when we are married, to have these check-ins to see, are we still on the same page? Are we evolving the same way? Do we have the same goals financially as well? And to know, what do we do if things don't go well in terms of our finances? And I think that's the difficult conversations that people do not have. But also love can cloud our minds. Like, we can see that, hi, Clement likes money, but because I love Clement, I'm going to try and make this work. And then unfortunately something happens when I'm with Clement. And then, the character of Clement truly comes out now because, money is no longer there. So sometimes it's because people go into relationships and we're not actually clear about our needs. We're not honest, right? We do have this premarital counseling, but people can put facades. Someone who likes money might not say that in the pre-counseling session, but when the money runs dry or something happens, then their true character comes out. So it's also very important to understand what are your values when it comes to marriage, what you expect from the other party, and truly be honest with self to say, is this person actually going to be there for me in the hard times? Because I think that's what relationships should be about. But sadly now in society, that's not what is prioritized.
Got you. It's 11:30. Let's get the latest in Eyewitness News headlines. What a difficult dynamic to manage in a family unit. How have you managed it in your own family, with your own spouse? Have you lied to your partner that you've lost your job, or have you picked up that your partner has lied about losing their jobs? And how did you communicate that to children when finances are changing and there are drastic changes that are required in your family? Share your thoughts, your experiences with us on the WhatsApp line, or you can give us a call. 11:30 now. Makimo Lapo has the latest in Eyewitness News headlines. Good morning.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. We begin with news just in. The Judicial Service Commission has unanimously resolved to advise President Cyril Ramaphosa to suspend Eastern Cape Judge President Selbie Mbenenge. This follows the JSC's finding of gross misconduct against Mbenenge and comes as Parliament prepares to consider proceedings that could ultimately lead to his removal from office. The Commission says the move is aimed at protecting the integrity and credibility of the judiciary while the constitutional process unfolds. In the capital, the recently resigned head of the investigating Directorate Against Corruption, Andrea Johnson, has defended IDAC's probe into security clearance manipulation at the Crime Intelligence. Johnson is currently testifying at the Madlanga Commission for her fourth day. She's responding to allegations that IDAC pursued baseless criminal investigations against senior crime intelligence officers for ulterior motives. And in the courts, the pre-trial conference in the murder case of Warwick Stock, popularly known as DJ Warris, has been postponed to the 19th of August. One of the accused, Victor Majola, told the court he's facing financial difficulties with funding his legal representation. Stock was shot and killed in December last year in the Joburg CBD in what's believed to be a targeted hit linked to work undertaken by his security company at hijacked buildings. Those are the headlines. This Eyewitness News and more at midday or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Well, in Alberton, we've got an accident reported on Heidelberg Road right near the N3 exit. It's causing delays coming out of Vereeniging Road. Please be on the lookout there. And heading towards the Germiston area, we've got delays on the N17 West. This is between Osborne Road and Wits Rifle Roads. That's due to roadworks there. There's also roadworks causing delays on the opposite side of this route in Boksburg, right as you approach the R21 turnoff. And then traveling in Amalgam, we've got delays along the M2 West approaching Main Reef Road. There's also a bit of a hold-up reported in Sharon Lee Randbeck on Madibongwe Drive towards the N1. More updates at the top of the hour. Stay tuned.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Time. When you're a kid, it moves slower than a sloth trying to get through airport security. There is just so much of it. Skip forward a few years to your 20s. Time is still your friend. It says have some balance. Go party and have fun. Then your 30s hit. And time suddenly steps on the accelerator like it's trying to catch a traffic light before it goes red. 40s. Now time is moving faster than your 10-year-old on a sugar high. 50. You're desperately trying to save as much as you can, but time is moving so fast. And all you can think is, where did all the time go? That's why after 50 years of investing, we've learned that time is the greatest gift of all. And the good news is, if you invest early, time gives you money. And then money gives you more time for some much-deserved you time. Now, isn't that a compelling enough reason to invest? Ellen Gray. Long-term investing. Ellen Gray is an authorized FSP.
Your office is more than just a place to work. It's a reflection of your success. At Desk and Chair, we help you elevate your workspace with locally manufactured desks and a wide range of chairs to suit your style and budget. Our expert consultants are with you every step of the way, from planning to delivery and assembly. Visit our showroom in Midrand or shop online at deskandchair.co.za. Desk and Chair. Think, feel, work better. Dreaming of your next getaway? Whether it's a sun-soaked beach escape, an adventure-packed tour, or a luxury cruise, Flight Center is your center for travel. We make travel easy, affordable, and stress-free. Plus, you can enjoy exclusive traveler perks with our frequent flighty rewards program. Flight Center's got you covered. Visit your nearest Flight Center store or online at flightcenter.co.za. Flight Center, your center for travel.
Your boss noticed. Your ex noticed. The neighbors definitely noticed. Because some cars say, I rented a car. And some cars say, I rented the car. Sani Sixt Rent a Car. Premium rentals. For people who don't settle. Choose the right car. Rent Sani Sixt on sani.co.za. 702.
Family Matters.
It's 25 minutes before 12 o'clock. We're having a conversation with Dr. Kitumetse Mashiro on our Family Matters feature this morning about financial stress and how that affects the family unit. Whether you have lost a job or your partner has, or you're drowning in debt, there are retrenchments, you've lost that big contract. Maybe it's just the cost of living that is consistently rising. How do you navigate the dynamics that change in the household when you have changes like that, even in salaries and monies that are coming in? And how do you even talk to children about it in a way that doesn't frighten them? Let's go to your WhatsApps on 0727021702.
Good morning, Clement and 702 listeners. You're touching a very, very sensitive and a painful subject, financial stress, especially when one has lost their job. Whether you've been fired, whether you've been retrenched, whether whatever reason that made you lose that job. Your independence as a person, not just as a man, as a person, your financial independence, it's gone from the day that you lose your job. That's the very, very, very biggest thing. And losing your job, it feels like losing your loved one. You have to mourn that period. And in mourning that period, that's where we lose it most of the time, because we don't know how to deal with those. It is a challenge, and it's a challenging space, speaking from experience, Clement, and it's very difficult. But you need to be open to your family. You need to be open to your spouse. You need to be open to those that are around you so that you get the necessary support that you have. It's Max here from Honeydew.
Morning, Clement, and morning to your guest. My guy, this is a very, 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 very serious conversation you have today, and we really appreciate that, especially for my fellow brothers. Guys, it's okay to lose your job. It's okay to fall and stand up and go forward. Look for something else. Again, it's okay. You don't have to commit suicide. You don't have to go through depression. You don't have to go under pressure, unnecessary. You understand? Ladies, please support your husbands. Support your partners. Please support these guys. They really do need your support when life happens. Please.
Yeah, support is actually quite important. Naledi M on the WhatsApp line says, Clement, during the first year of our marriage, finances became very tight. What helped us was realizing that this was not a burden that only one of us had to carry. We were a team. We spent time indoors, playing games together, etc. This reduced the stress, and we were able to think and come up with solutions. We've been married for 10 years now, and we're comfortable. Our son came 6 years later. So teamwork, teamwork, teamwork. That's a message there from Naledi. And as you said, Dr. Mashiro, that's the best way to deal with it, right? When you are tech teaming, like when you're coming together and saying, we're gonna get over the hurdle, and this is the plan to get us to the other side.
Definitely, and I think, and I'm glad that we've had callers who are giving us this side of the story, the other side of the
Yeah.
coin, because I think mostly what we see is when partners fall apart. That's also an important conversation to have. But actually, examples where people have actually stuck together throughout the financial stresses. But it takes, a different type of character. A person must be willing and be intentional to understand that my partner here is the one I chose to be with or without the finances, and how do we make it work? And of course, I'm not discounting that there are people who take advantage. There are people, for example, who deliberately, for example, would lose their job or resign from their job in order to take advantage of the other partner.
Yeah.
We do get those, outliers. But definitely when people choose each other, they need to choose each other intentionally daily and understand that it's not going to be easy, but also to work together in the hard times so that you can have, good times again. That understanding that this time is a phase, testing their characters and their partnership.
Yeah. What coping strategies though could help families under financial pressure? I loved what Naledi M on the WhatsApp line was saying, that look, we used to play games indoors, so there are certain things they did as a family so that it's not too obvious that we're not going out anymore as we used to, and so any other coping strategies that couples that are going through this can take so that it's not too glaring and obvious, especially to the young ones?
I think be aware of how you stress, because we're not the same. Some people, when they're stressed, they're not sleeping, they're not eating, they're more anxious, they're more irritable. So just that self-awareness is important for the partners, who are now struggling financially, and also just having conversations. It's very quick for us when we are in a relationship and there's a bit of turmoil to start pardon me, to start blaming the
Yeah.
other person. So watch out for that as well. That, if my partner starts doing certain things because of the stress, instead of me now attacking them and saying, you always do this, you always do this, rather now I become vulnerable and I use the I. I am concerned that I notice that, the drinking has become now every day instead of just the weekend. So verbalize your needs, but also then working together and, readjusting, the things that you used to do, and understanding that just because you are changing and, for example, playing games indoors, it doesn't mean you're failures. It means you're adapting. And I feel like life is about adaptation, right? You need to adapt to some of the things are beyond your control. We cannot just sit and think about that, the fact that you're not working 24/7, because that's not going to change the reality. Actually, that will cause you to be more distressed and more anxious, but rather zoom into what is working and what you're doing to get out of the situation, but definitely working together as a unit, but also doing that internal work to ensure that you yourself are not impacted negatively because of the stress, and the other partner as well, to understand that what they need to do to support their partner.
Let's go back to some WhatsApps.
Hi, Clement and the team. I've been unemployed for 8 months now. Lost my job, and then my wife doesn't know. It's been 8 months. She doesn't know anything. So yeah, I think I concur with the listener that just shared what they're going through, but I'm on the same boat.
Yeah, sure. That is so hectic, and I'm sorry to hear about that. I'm just wondering here, Dr. Masho, what leads to men, some of them, deciding to keep it a secret? I mentioned the example of the gentleman I interacted with who says, he still hasn't said anything to his wife, and here's another one now who says, I mean, for 8 months, there must be something that
Yeah.
you are scared of, because
Yeah.
8 months is a long time to pretend.
Definitely, definitely. And it's a reflection definitely of society, right? Firstly,
Mm.
that society often puts pressure on men to be the providers, and men then internalize this as their identity. So losing a job basically for them feels like they're losing their identity. And also some relationships, unfortunately, we've heard examples even this morning that the partners, the female partners, and expect this of their husbands or their partners to provide at all costs. But I mean, that's setting them up for failure, because life sometimes will happen, right? And it doesn't mean that the men are weak or they're failures. It just means that they're going through this season. So I think it's multifaceted. There's different levels to this thing that, you know, society often expects this from men. The partners expect this from their men. The men themselves expect themselves to be providers. So, you know, the stigma, they also stigmatize themselves. And that's why the fear, right? And also maybe fear of being judged, of losing the family unit, of losing the partner. But maybe also they know their partners, that their partners will not be able to handle the stress, or they've seen how they've reacted to stress before. Maybe that's also what they're fearing. But what I always say is, you don't know the outcome. You don't know what you don't know, right? And you know, sitting with it and not doing anything about it does not change the scenario, but you don't know what you don't know. So what you need to do is to actually have the courage somewhere, dig deep, to seek the help, to verbalize what's going on, and then to obviously then face the consequences and start planning about how to go about, you know, this thing that has happened to you and to the family unit. But definitely takes courage for providers who identify themselves as providers, and their self-worth is wrapped around it, for them to verbalize when they've lost that ability to do so.
Yeah. Here's another voice note.
Morning, 702. The gentleman that says without money there's no relationship, it's not true. And there is, I don't know, men think when they don't have money, women don't want them. No, it's how men behave when they don't have money. I find that, okay, in my experience, some men, when they don't have money, they become cold, arrogant, they feel sorry for themselves. They don't, I don't know, they just become very cold. And then someone goes out there to try and prove a point that, yeah, I'm going to make all this money. And then they start having secrets. So it's how you behave when you don't have money. If you are a supportive partner without money, you understand that the wife now has to go to work and provide. So it means you must stay home, make sure that the house is clean, the laundry is done, and then we let go of the helper, because those are the funds that we need until further notice. So I find that men become very arrogant when they don't have money. They become arrogant sometimes when they have a lot of money, and arrogant when they have no money. This is Vuya from Boxbeck. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Vuyo, for your WhatsApp. Is that the case always, Dr. Mashiro, or because you mentioned earlier that the expectation society has of men? I mean, growing up, we were always taught, yeah, a man is a provider. You need to be able to provide, to a point where even when circumstances are beyond you, you are seen as a failure if you lose a job or you're struggling to find a job. It's almost like there's an expectation that automatically, just by virtue of being a man, then you somehow, get employed so easily, when it's actually not the case, especially with our high levels of unemployment. So, and I'm not saying there's no instances where there can be arrogance coming from men who may not be employed, but the reality here is we live in a society that has always somehow positioned us as providers, and the expectation has been that you've got a job, otherwise you're seen as a failure.
Mm-hmm. And definitely remember also what the spanner to the works there is that men are not also given the spaces to express how they feel, right? And the previous voice note is correct in saying that how you behave when you don't have money can also obviously impact the relationship. And men then becoming arrogant, irritable, and all that could be an indication. And I'm not making excuse for their behaviors, of course. I'm just trying to, tap into the mind of their behaviors. They would do that because they are depressed, they are stressed, they don't have the words to express how much they feel like failures. And then it tends to come across as irritability and anger and defense mechanisms that we often see, and poor coping strategies, self-medication and. So I think it also, we need to really understand that men and women, we are having this human experience, and sometimes life will happen, right? And really we need to figure out how to also ensure that we have the coping strategies to manage this life thing, but also teach our children how to manage this life thing. But we are so stuck sometimes in doing things the way we think or the way we know how to, even though that thing is incorrect. We really need to do some unlearning and really, allow ourselves to have the human experience, which comes with ups and downs. And it's not just about the ups, but also how do we navigate the downs? And I think that's what we often miss. That's what we don't teach, the boy child, the girl child, how to deal with the down moments, how to not want to wrap your self-worth around how much you earn or the material things that you have. Because at the end of the day, that's why we get people who retire and they feel so lost, because they've wrapped their identity around work. But there's more to us than what we do and the things we have. We are holistic beings, and I think that's the goal we need to aim to to have as human beings, to see ourselves holistically. But of course, we cannot downplay that we're living in a world where there's so much pressure now, right, financially and. But how do we then, in that place, still function, still treat each other kindly, and make sure and treat ourselves kindly as we navigate this life thing? But sometimes also the stress of finances can really break, what was already cracked. So how do you then grieve that and move on from that? Because it took you losing a job or the financial stress to really see your person for who they are, or to see yourself for what you're about. But how do you move forward from that?
Absolutely. It's 10 minutes before 12. More of your WhatsApps and voice notes after this.
Imagine a holiday where the only thing on the to-do list is enjoy yourself. With Norwegian Cruise Line, you can sail to over 400 destinations worldwide effortlessly. Visit ncl.com for the best deals or contact your travel agent today. Norwegian Cruise Line. It's different out here. T's and C's apply. Find your next design obsession at Decorex Joburg. From the 30th of July to the 2nd of August, the Sandton Convention Center becomes the destination for the latest in decor and design. Explore over 450 exhibitors across 5 levels, inspiring talks and live demos, plus the property show by Private Property. Download the Decorex app and plan your visit today. Decorex Joburg, 30th July to 2nd August. Tickets at decorex.co.za and at the door.
Dad, how come Mom's not coming to my soccer game?
Well, Mom isn't allowed to come to your soccer games anymore.
Is it because she tried to tackle Coach KB for giving me a red card?
Maybe.
Humans who fiercely protect the people they love. Welcome. Search Liberty Protect to protect your life and legacy today. Liberty, in it with you, all of you. Liberty Group Limited, a licensed life insurer and authorized FSP and part of the Standard Bank Group. T's and C's, risks and limitations apply.
To walk the talk is to turn words into meaningful actions. And it's what we at 702 are committed to doing every day. We're also committed to following the rules set out by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission's Code of Conduct to give you balanced programming, fair comment, and accurate news. But if we stumble along the way and you feel we're not living up to the code, let us know on comment@702.co.za. And if after that you're still not happy, you can direct your complaint in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission, PO Box 412365, Craig Hall 2024. For more, visit bccsa.co.za. 702.
Family Matters.
It's now going up to 7 minutes before 12 o'clock. Let's go back to your WhatsApps on 072 702 1702.
Hey, Clement. Been there, done that. Yeah. Look, money is very important. I was in a toxic work environment. Got dismissed. Had to start from scratch. Within that process, got married. Exhausted all my savings. But it wasn't a happy marriage because the things that I could do when I was in my previous job, I couldn't do them anymore. And I would get jobs there and there, but they never fully, fill that gap. And I remember when she finally decided to leave, she's like, you know what, I'm choosing independence. I'm choosing to look after myself. It hurts a lot. By the grace of God, I got another job, a good job, double paying from what I was earning. But you can see the regrets. You can see the regrets. For better and for worse, hey, those words mean a lot. And I don't think people comprehend what those words actually mean.
Hi, Clement, how are you? It's Bafana here from Davidton. You're touching a very sensitive subject, I must tell you. I lost my wife in February. We buried her in February. And we've got 2 boys. It was a family of 4. Now it's 3 of us. It's me and the boys. Navigating everything now becomes difficult. Secondly, the finances now are taking a toll on me because, we're trying to maintain the very same lifestyle that they were living with their mom. But now putting into reality, with the economy that we're living in today, it's very difficult, I must tell you. But yeah, what can we say? You rob Peter to pay Paul. The other one will suffer this month. The other month, you rob Paul to pay Peter. Yeah, navigating is all about, cutting budgets, like you're saying, explaining to the kids, and it was a loss of a spouse. But yeah, I'm feeling it now. I'm feeling it. Thanks, Clement. Show.
Oh man, I'm sorry to hear about your wife. I hope you guys are holding up as a family, you and the boys. Oh, Dr. Mashoro, it's just so painful to have, because as you can imagine, as a father, he's trying to get the children, trying to ensure that at least they maintain the same lifestyle, because there's nothing as worse as the children dealing with mommy's passing. And then on top of that, they're dealing with the dynamics that are changing. So the lifestyle changes. The school you used to go to changes. It's quite a lot of disruption, and there are families out there that have to navigate that.
Yes, that's the reality of what happens, in like the instance where we the voice note that was sent. And what I can recommend is that he keeps on, trying to adapt, and the change. Remember, he must be okay for the kids to be okay. And I think that's where sometimes when there's stress, the parents often put the kids first at the expense of their own happiness. And I'm not saying that you must neglect your children, but if you are constantly feeling the pressure and the stress, it will manifest somehow, right? And that will compromise how you parent. So my recommendation is that, I don't know if he's already seeking just some professional help emotionally to get that support, but to plan around how to adjust the finances after the loss of his wife. So, if he's going to downgrade, and to ease them into that, the school fees, whatever it is that he needs to take care of, budgeting, and just introducing the children into this new lifestyle with support, and also getting the children that emotional support as well, because now he's putting it on himself to try and maintain what he cannot maintain, which is, setting himself up for failure in the long run. So he needs to make sure he's fine while the children are fine, and they're all supported emotionally. And I recommend that there's a financial planner involved to, help him, move forward from this, but also grieving the wife and the mother, concurrently in all this. But to also understand children can adapt. Right. I know sometimes we want to protect them from changing schools, and yes, they might be resistant, they might cry in the beginning, but they can adapt.
Yeah.
You find a good school, you find the support, they can adapt and move on and thrive in spite of the financial losses or the pain that they're feeling now.
Yeah, Dr. Kitumetsu Mashiro, clinical psychologist, thank you for guiding us so brilliantly in this important conversation.
You know when your people are giving their best, not because they're pushed or pressured, but because they feel supported, and support is making sure they're covered. So if something happens, they can get the care they need. FlexiCare Health Insurance makes it simple for every business to protect their people with affordable health cover. You care. We cover. For a tailored FlexiCare quote, speak to your financial advisor today. FlexiCare is not a medical scheme, and the cover is not the same. FlexiCare is underwritten by Auto & General, a licensed non-life insurer and FSP, and administered by Discovery Health, an authorized FSP.
Big game for Alan, balancing the day-to-day, looking after his family while still planning ahead. Good thing he's with FNB Private. Service suite backing him on and off the field 24/7. His banking advisor keeps the day-to-day moving. When the game needs strategy, his private advisor steps in. And when things get more complex, the right specialists come off the bench. Everyone in position.
Switch to FNB Private. FNB. Help changes everything. FNB is a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP. T's and C's apply.
Unleash your extraordinary with the ultimate content powerhouse. Unfold the all-new Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 8 256 gig and get a free 1,500 Rand in-store accessory voucher for just 1,549 Rand per month over 36 months on a 4 gig Red Core plan. Plus, add 149 Rand extra per month and get the new Galaxy Watch 9 eSIM. Pre-order now. Available in-store and online. T's and C's apply. Further together, Vodacom.
Coming up
on the Midday Report
with Mandy Wiener.
Mandy, good morning.
Good morning.
How was your walk yesterday?
It was nice. I did
Yeah?
the 8K, which felt like 10Ks, but it was good.
Yeah.
It was brilliant. I loved it. I loved walking through the city.
Yeah,
There
it's
were so many
amazing.
highlights for me.
Yeah. What's popping?
So the president has now accepted Andrea Johnson's resignation as IDAC head, as you've been speaking about. We'll look at what that means for the organization. I'll give you my take as well. Johnson back on the stand at the Midlanga Commission, facing questions over how investigations were authorized. The ATM is continuing its legal pursuit in the Phala matter. There's been yet another gang-related mass shooting in Cape Town this morning, and then lots of sport this weekend.
Yeah, the Hungarian Grand Prix was so boring.
Yeah, it was okay. But I mean,
Ugh.
ask Tolokele. Every time she asks me, I say that the season is boring.
Mm.
There were the end of the Tour de France was super exciting.
Mhm.
I don't know if you watched that. That was really exciting. It was a photo finish. And then the
Okay.
Commonwealth Games, of course. And then today we've got WAFCON.
Okay, that's what's coming up on the Midday Report with Mandy Wiener. Thank you for listening to the show. We'll be back tomorrow between 9 and 12. Stay listening to 702 throughout the day and have a beautiful, beautiful day, my friends. Bye-bye.
This is EWN.
Good afternoon, I'm Mikey Malapo. The Judicial Service Commission has unanimously resolved to advise President Cyril Ramaphosa to suspend Eastern Cape Judge President Selbin Benenge. This follows the JSC's finding of gross misconduct against Benenge over sexual harassment allegations against him and comes as Parliament prepares to consider proceedings that could ultimately lead Secretary Andi Swamengo lodged the complaint alleged